Meh is an interjection used as an expression of indifference or boredom. It is often regarded as the verbal equivalent of a shrug of the shoulders. It is often to show that the speaker is apathetic, uninterested, or indifferent, and it is occasionally used as an adjective meaning something that is mediocre or unremarkable. The word meh's popularity surged after its use on the television series The Simpsons. And Lisa spells out the word for emphasis as Homer tries to interest her and Bart into going to a theme park. Whatever Yiddish origins the interjection might have had, they might have been lost in post-Simpsons usage. And why I bring this up? Because meh is basically the best adjective to describe the mid-seasons of this show. Take it away, Evan.
So, just to be clear, we're not talking about The Mandalorian this time?
No, we are not talking about The Mandalorian this time.
Oh, because I just thought, Disney...
Do you want to talk about The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I do, but not today. Because last time I thought to myself, you started with, we're going to talk about Disney Plus. Gave us a lot of things. Yeah, The Mandalorian. And then I'm like, maybe we'll talk about this time. So, okay, that joke didn't really work. But welcome to So to Speak.
Star Wars will come eventually. Just you wait.
Patience, young Padawan. Welcome to So to Speak. I'm Evan Mead.
I'm Lyle Groniger.
And today, as Lyle very eloquently worded, we're going to continue with...
the marathon.
Yeah, because this is our 20th episode. We've been on the air for almost half a year at this point. So we wanted to dedicate our 20th episode to picking up in Simpsons history where we left off in terms of our recounting. Given the quality of seasons 11 to 20, this episode I feel like is going to be shorter. But the guests we have are just as awesome. Joshua Weinberg is back, and Cody McDonald is all Simpsons out. Poor guy.
Yeah.
So...
Well, he already expressed how much he hated season 10, and he wasn't really interested to keep going.
Yeah, for him, he even said in our last episode of The Simpsons, the show is kind of dead to him after, like, halfway through season 9. Well, no, he said it was dead to him after the New York episode, which is the beginning of season 9.
Yeah, he really hates the principal and the pauper.
Yeah, so anyways.
But we're also accompanied by our good friend Michael Lake.
Yes, Michael Lake
who's with us in the Treehouse of Horror retrospective.
Yeah, he's we were happy to have him just come on the show today to talk about the Silver Age of The Simpsons. Because you know how there's like a golden age of comics and a silver age of comics? That's like, I feel how it is for The Simpsons. And then
there's also a Bronze Age.
Yeah, we'll get to the Bronze Age on episode 30.
Give it another 10 episodes.
And I'm not looking forward to that.
You're stealing all my jokes.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, so welcome guys. So where do we want to start today? I guess...
Well, Michael, you're our guest, so I guess we can begin with your pick for season 11. We'll go through the seasons. We each picked an episode.
And
it's the best.
Yeah.
All right. Idly Ho, Podcasterinos.
Oakley Dokley.
My personal pick for the first season of the Silver Age is called Take My Wife Sleaze. This is the episode where Homer, in a bit of misplaced confidence, kind of becomes obsessed with driving his motorcycle and decides to form a motorcycle gang with some of Moe's barflies. I think this episode is really strong because of the guest voice talent that it employs. Like Don Goodman is in it, and he's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, James Sullivan. So good.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was John Goodman when I saw it.
He is a little undecipherable in that role. I think I picked up on him a little while. It was the second time I watched the episode. I knew it was him.
Yeah.
But one thing that I didn't even register until like way more recently was that Henry Winkler is also in that episode.
Yeah.
Kind of a funny. The episode starts with the family visiting this 50s restaurant. So I feel like I feel like Henry Winkler's character comes later, but just the fact that plot's kind of mixed in there is a kind of fun, sort of Happy Days sort of homage. But this episode is really funny, but it's also like kind of dark, and there's lots of like really uncomfortable kind of laughs in this episode because the biker gang, they are kind of like bad guys. They're destroying the Simpsons' life. It's almost like a sort of spiritual sequel to that Carney episode with Jim Varney.
Yeah, Bart Carney.
Like this
Carney,
this
Jim
family
Carney.
of this quote unquote family of biker gangs is now just like terrorizing the Simpsons and making their life hell and literally kidnapping the matriarch Marge. But it is like a really kind of interesting kind of character portrait of these like of this like dirty biker gang and these like lowlifes and how they eventually come to sort of like meet in the middle with the Simpsons family. It's a favorite of mine. I've seen it numerous times, and it has a different kind of humor than you'd expect from some classic era Simpsons episodes, but there are some like genuinely kind of just like really funny, but also kind of just like painful and kind of awkward jokes in there.
I love the ending where they fight each other with literal motorcycles.
Yes.
As if they're swords. That's just the part that stands out to me the most.
Yeah, that's one of the funniest visual gags for me of this era, especially of that season. Just the fact that they just are wielding their actual motorcycles as weapons is very, very funny to me.
And they toss him another one when he loses it.
Yeah.
John Goodman
I mean,
makes
where
that
else are you going to find Sully and the Fonz as bikers?
That's pretty cool.
Hey.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think if they could get Ghost to do the Happy Days theme, that'd be cool.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I also loved the sort of dance-off they have in the diners to, I believe it was Mental House Rock.
Oh, that was a good
It's
one.
kind of funny, you know. They actually have some decent dance moves, and then Homer throws Marge up so high in the air, she comes down and she walks through the doors as if she's there for the first time.
Was
that
that
was a nice touch?
Was
I
that
didn't get that.
I think that was a nod to Airplane, because Airplane does almost the exact same joke when they're dancing to Staying Alive in the disco bar.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Is that all we have to say about Take My Wife's Sleaze?
Yeah, no, that's a good recap.
By the way, I forgot to mention, I am the time manager of this episode, so if anyone goes over like 10 minutes, I'm going to start singing Guys and Dolls until we move on.
Okay, so we're not like...
Other than the things I didn't know about you.
We're not going to throw up the picture of Time Wizard, the Yu-Gi-Oh card?
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm next. We are going... I picked... not a funny episode, but quite a monumental episode in the chronology of The Simpsons. I picked Alone Again, NATURADIDDILY. And the plot of this episode is Maude sadly dies in a very tragic t-shirt accident. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this episode was like, when I first watched it, it was kind of like a game changer, because like I'm not used to The Simpsons episodes like going like so hard, I guess, like when because yeah, some characters do pass away throughout the show. That's a given, but like usually it's kind of done for like I always think of Frank Grimes, where it's just such a comedic event that it's like my favorite part of the episode.
I think the most poignant
this
death
this one's more
before
more
Maude
effective.
Flanders, I think the most significant death was Bleeding Gums Murphy.
That was another one. I picked that one too.
Yeah.
Brian Springfield.
Yeah.
I'm like the timekeeper of tragic episodes of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But I have a question, guys. Do you think Homer was at all responsible for Maude's death?
I mean, how symbolic that there's like sirens in the background for one of you.
Yeah, that's...
Maude?
I mean, to say Homer is a little responsible is like saying the Big Bang was a little explosion that created the universe.
Oh, so he... Yeah. Well, I mean...
I don't know. I think I would sue that stadium for not having any guardrails at
It's
the
a
top.
mix of both.
Yeah.
Because, the stadium is to blame if we're being realistic, but, like, you don't taunt t-shirt cannon people and not expect to, you know, get t-shirts fired at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were culpable too. I mean, full blast. Totally.
And what I find so insanely, like, almost tragic is that Ned Flanders, there is an episode eventually where he kind of puts a jab at Homer, that, like, yeah, you're indirectly responsible for the death of my wife. Like, but it was actually kind of a lighthearted moment in that episode where Homer and Ned become bounty hunters. But other than that, Ned Flanders is Ned Flanders about the whole incident. He just takes it in stride 1 minute at a time.
I know Homer does.
Well, how else can you How else can you cope with something like that?
I mean, like, there's
I mean, Homer did at one point. They were on the swing set, and Homer basically did break down all the reasons why he felt responsible, including blocking off emergency vehicles for resuscitation. Although it's not easy to resuscitate someone who fell like 2 stories.
Yeah, that was a stadium grand complex would be like, I think 5 or 8 stories off the ground.
Maybe,
but yeah.
5 stories seems generous.
Yeah,
I don't know. Either way, she died on
my
impact.
issues with this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, you have issues with the episode? Oh yeah, the behind the scenes stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we can get into it now or
we got time.
Yeah, we got
time. I
we
mean,
got the time.
I think the only thing I will say is I think it's cute when Bart is playing video games with Rod and Todd, and he's basically hogging the controller, and they're like, "Can we play?" It's like, "You are playing. We're a team." Yay!
Is that where they give him the Bible Blaster?
The Bible Blaster game.
Convert the heathens.
Total conversion.
Why does that remind me of like Super 3D Noah's Ark and those like sort of wisdom tree games on the NES and Super Nintendo that are just Bible themed versions of games like Doom and stuff like that?
Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, Josh, we should actually touch on the behind the scenes reason as to why Maude Flanders was killed off.
Before that, I will preface this is sort of an inverse of Homer the Heretic, whereas that episode has Homer realizing, his disconnection with religion. This is Ned really trying to cope with, a sort of lack of faith or difficulty in trying to keep it with such a tragic event. But that doesn't save this, in my opinion, being one of the most petty episodes of the entire franchise because of a lovely thing called pay disputes.
Oh.
So, for those of you that are familiar with the voice cast of The Simpsons, a longtime voice of Maude Flanders, Maggie Roswell, obviously wanted to get some more pay because I believe it was every 2 days, twice a week. She would fly from her home in Denver to Los Angeles to record her lines, and she eventually became tired of this because the price of airfare keeps going up as the show keeps being on the air. So she asked Fox for a pay raise from about $4,000 an episode, from $2,000 to $6,000, but they only offered her a $150 raise, which clearly was not going to cover her travel costs. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So yeah, suffice to say, not only did they get a replacement voice actress by the name of Marsha Missman Gavin to fill in for any character she voiced, the producers then decided to kill Maude off to open up new storylines for the show. And herein lies the point where I feel The Simpsons, cross the line that you do not cross. You do not kill off a supporting character simply because you want to get more ratings and, quote-unquote, open up other storylines. Because that's just a cheap way of saying you wanted to stick it to that person directly.
Well, it's cheap, too, because they don't want to pay him extra either.
And what's even more, what adds insult to injury is if you look at, like, the financial records that are public today, the cast members of The Simpsons make truckloads of money for every new episode.
Let's be realistic. The main ones.
Yeah, Dan Castellaneta.
Dan, Julie, Yardley, Nancy, Harry, and Hank.
The big 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Big 5 or 6. Maggie Roswell was more of a bit player. While she did come back to The Simpsons in 2002, because then, I guess, new management reached a deal with her so she could record lines from her home, which, imagine that. Somebody thinking work from home protocol should be a thing in, 2000?
In season, I believe 19, there is an episode where they show a young Homer and Marge meeting a young Maude and Ned in a flashback episode.
That is Dangerous Curves.
Dangerous Curves, that's the one. That was a weird episode, but anyways, so in that
It felt
episode,
weird. That's why it felt weird seeing, Maud at least be in like certain episodes later on.
yeah,
Although there is the one where like she was a ghost in, I think it was the Treehouse 4.
Yeah.
It just kind of felt like this entire episode, and thus like future episodes that we'll touch on later. We might like I'm going to Praise Land, things like that. They didn't need to happen if they paid their voice actresses or voice people responsibly. So there's a lesson for all the network execs.
Well, my point is,
treat your cast and crew with respect.
Yeah. Did they get Maggie Roswell to come back for Dangerous Curves, or did she ever come back, or did they just get an actress that sounded so much like Maude that there was no need?
No, well, she came back to the show in 2002, so yeah, it's assumed in Dangerous Curves she did voice Maude again.
Oh, that's good at least. So there was some amends to be made there.
If you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of did, but when you look at Flanders' development with episodes like When Flanders Failed, Homer Loves Flanders, and Hurricane Nettie, those are three pivotal episodes to sort of shaping the audience's idea of who Ned is as a character and sort of community figure. And then this episode essentially tore all that down to try and build something up in a new image that sort of basically just became a one-note character with some exceptions since then.
Zombie Flanders.
Oh, yeah. You was a zombie?
Alright, well, we're kind of close to time, so I think I'm ready to move on.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
My personal favorite episode of Season 11 is an episode that doesn't get a lot of praise, but I love it just because of the jokes that they create in the final act of the episode. Little Big Mom. The premise, I'll sum it up nicely. Marge gets injured in a skiing accident, and the only person in the household of The Simpsons who is qualified to look after Bart and Homer and Maggie is Lisa. So, while Marge is in the hospital recovering from her injury, Lisa has to take care of Homer and Bart, and it goes if you've seen My Sister, My Sitter, you'll know exactly how this is going to go, except My Sister, My Sitter was way darker. This is a lot more fun. Basically, Homer and Bart are irresponsible oafs, and Lisa tricks them into thinking they have leprosy, and then they get shipped off to a leper colony in Hawaii.
That's one way to get a Hawaiian vacation.
Oh, yeah. And my favorite joke in the whole episode is when they say, "Welcome to Hawaii. You get a view of the beach from the electric needle room. We get to go to the beach? Yes." After the electric needle room. Electric needle room! And then they show, like, a little, like, tiki hut on the beach, and this most searing, like, drill laced with fire is, like, drilling into Homer's flesh, like, ah! 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 Okay, I'll go again. And then, it's, I don't know, it's just, and it's a cute premise, too. Like, I like seeing Lisa get to be the adult in the room when that's clearly what she's qualified for. Lisa is kind of like the Brian Griffin of the show, of the Simpsons, minus all the racism, because she's like one of the voices of reason.
Wow.
By the way, I mentioned earlier that Marge gets her leg injured in a skiing accident. It actually has nothing to do with skiing. She doesn't ski on the slopes for 1 second. She actually hangs out at the chalet the whole day. And then a cuckoo clock falls off the wall and lands on her leg.
Oh.
Yeah, so you'd think that, she'd get injured on the slopes, but it's not like that at all.
Can happen to anyone. Yeah. Especially you.
Yeah.
And remember, in case a clock falls off a wall, all you have to do is, these pants are so comfortable, it feels like I'm wearing nothing at all.
Oh,
nothing at all.
yes.
Nothing at all. Oh, stupid, sexy Flanders.
I was going to talk about that
one of the better jokes in this age of the
show.
I gotta say,
this episode is where stupid, sexy Flanders came from.
Sexy.
And that's really all I can really say about this episode. It's a fun little gem that is an improvement over a much darker episode that came earlier in the show.
So, and as an aside, because the side plot, basically because of the ending, because it deals with leprosy, this episode's never aired in Japan.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Essentially, there was former segregation laws in Japan that are still a sensitive topic to this day. where litigation of leprosy cases and actual like human rights charges abuses by the Japanese government have ensued as a result.
Oh wow.
You should probably look it up sometime, but this is one of a few episodes. I believe the only other one, to my knowledge, is 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, or 30 Minutes. Yeah, is it 30 Minutes Over Tokyo?
Yes.
The season 10 finale that have not aired in Japan, because that one is where Homer throws the Emperor of Japan into the used sumo thong spin.
Oh yeah, so, that'll get you banned.
Tasty.
There's a
which is interesting as an aside, because The Simpsons is still pretty big in Japan in various aspects. If being a kid in the early 2000s, those CC Lemon soft drink commercials I would watch on the internet sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, when we get to season 16, Josh, there's another question I want to ask you about countries that ban Simpsons episodes, but we'll get to that at season 16.
I'll have to check that, but yeah.
Okay, so Josh, what was your pick for season 11?
All right. Well, being that we're recording this just a few weeks before the holidays, I felt it appropriate that my pick for season 11 is Grift of the Magi. So,
is it Magi or Maggie
or?
Is it Magi or Magi or Mag?
I thought it was Magi.
Okay, because I've heard it Magi.
I always said Maggie.
So yeah,
I thought that was the joke, but I was wrong.
Yeah, no, the episode has nothing to do with Maggie.
Not really.
Okay.
So after Bart cracks his coccyx because there's a bowling ball near Homer's bed, he's handicapped for a few weeks, but the school is not handicapped accessible. And after Fat Tony, quote unquote, attempts to make it so, all the ramps break, the school is broke, and this company, Kids First Industry, sort of reopens the school. But it turns out, Lisa finds out that they're all just using the students to create a new holiday toy named Funzo. And for an episode that aired in late '99, can you figure out what popular kids toy they were parodying?
Furbies?
I'll give you one guess.
Furbies?
Tickle Me Elmo.
Furby, yeah.
Well, being it starts with an F and Furby started with an F, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
Evan gets 10 points for Gryffindor.
You win a no prize. But for an episode that was like, for a toy like Furbies that were big around 98 through 2000, 2001, it was a nice spin on that. Essentially, Bart and Lisa find out that Funzo has literally been programmed to eliminate competing toys. And a surprisingly gruesome scene where it literally breaks Malibu Stacy in half and like uses the Krusty doll's own cord to asphyxiate them. It's surprisingly dark. So Bart and Lisa, with Homer's help, steal all the Funzos in town to rid the town of them, and then they are stopped by security guard for Kids First and one of the special guest stars, Gary Coleman.
Gary.
Yeah, well, I also I didn't know this until the first time I saw the episode, but Tim Robbins actually guest stars, and you can't.
I know. I almost forgot that Tim Robbins was in this.
You can't tell.
He's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Well, not the first time. It ends essentially with Gary and Homer, Bart, and Lisa sort of coming to an agreement that at least, Christmas, the commercialization of it is a mixed blessing at best. So then he has dinner with them. Apparently, Mr. Burns found the money to save the school in his tuxedo pants. And it's one of the more sort of absurdist at times holiday episodes. But the scene where the half-melted Funzo rises up out of the tire fire and then Gary just does some kung fu on it. It's like Gary Coleman versus a mini T-1000.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's one
and
of the
also
more
has one of my
memorable
favorite
ones.
jokes as well. So, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Quasi Kwanzaa, a Tip Top Tet, and a solemn and dignified Ramadan.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's unless you got anything more to say, I guess it's back to Michael.
Cool.
Yeah. We're on to season 12 now.
That was quick.
Yeah, season 12. Cool. So my pick for this is Pokemon, which is an episode about Marge kind of befriending this inmate at Springfield Penitentiary and him coming to live with them. This is the second episode in a row I've picked the Simpsons having a strange housemate that kind of shakes up their lifestyle. But I really like this episode because it features a genuinely good Michael Keaton performance.
Yeah.
Speaking of unrecognizable guest stars, but like he does such a good job here.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because it's after his Batman career, but it's like his pre his kind of current
Yeah, it was
renaissance,
before
where he's
his
doing all sorts of
comeback.
stuff. Like he was kind of lower profile at the time, and like he just plays this like sort of sympathetic prisoner, with like a lot of like humanity. It's like a really good like role. I mean, spoiler alert for the episode, but he turns out to just be like a bad person anyways. So the
Yeah.
kind of hilarious kind of like message of humanity and seeing the good in everyone is kind of undone with like a punchline, which I also find is a really funny like part, that there's all this build up, there's all this like prisoner rehabilitation, there's this kind of like Shawshank-esque kind of storyline about seeing the humanity in this guy who's been incarcerated, and then it's like, oh, send him back to jail, he's a murderer. It's a funny episode. The subplots in this episode kind of are set up in a very interesting way. Like I feel like a lot of Simpsons episodes, especially in this era, have like some weird subplots that don't really converge properly, but or diverge properly for that matter. But there's like a scene early in this episode where the subplots are kind of being established at the same time. Homer's having some like back problems while he's at this prison visit, and then he ends up running a chiropractor business, an illegal chiropractor business for like the rest of the
with a
episode.
trash can.
Which, yeah, it features some really hilarious and just like absurd Homer physical comedy.
Forget it, Homer. It's Cairo Town.
Yeah, that's an absolute bonkers, hilarious reference. So yeah, there's just a lot going on in this episode that I really like, and I just think it's definitely a standout for me from this era as well as from this season.
I think my favorite part of the episode is just at the end when like Michael Keaton's character is being carted off by Wiggum and they're driving away and they're just having like the most casual conversation ever, and it's just it's actually lovely to listen to.
Yeah, that was really funny.
It's like, you watch this show? It's alright, I don't know. I don't pay attention to sports, I don't know. Just not my thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't quote verbatim, but yeah, it was just a really chill conversation you wouldn't expect from someone who just got arrested, so... That's Michael Keaton for you. Oh, the charming rascal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best kind of summary of some of the best roles he's played.
Yeah, right? Make my millennium.
I'm not as familiar with this one, although I love that the chalkboard gag is, I will not let the dogs out.
Ha!
You had to be there.
Because
very early 2000s joke,
yeah. Oh god, I remember that.
Yeah. Thanks, Rugrats. Rugrats go to Paris.
Rugrats in Paris.
Yeah, Rugrats in Paris.
Yeah, no, that was it. That trailer or that movie.
It's
that
in that
made
movie.
the song in your
That's what introduced me to the song. But
I think I remember hearing it on the radio before I heard it in the movie, so it certainly helped.
I remember hearing that song in a car commercial, but in the summer of 2000, that song was everywhere.
Yeah.
2007.
Although this episode aired in like early 2001, so I think it still held over for a little bit.
They actually got the Bomb Man as a guest star in season 14 to record a parody.
That's when they were in there. We need to do whatever work we can get phase.
Yeah.
Poor guys. Yeah.
Right before the we broke up phase.
Literally, poor guys.
Yeah.
Is that all you have to say about this episode, Michael?
Yeah, I think that's my time. Yeah.
Let's carry on then. Yeah. We're doing good so far. We haven't stretched our limit yet.
Yeah.
Alright, my next episode is probably one of my favorite episodes. If you ever seen the movie Go, directed by Doug Liman, you know where this is going.
No pun intended.
My episode is Trilogy of Error.
This is a great episode.
I would have picked this one, but one of the best of the entire franchise.
Honestly, this is a very good contender for like one of my top 10 favorite episodes, because like if you're a huge fan of 22 short films about Springfield, then you have no reason not to like this one episode. How do I summarize this in a sentence? Lisa builds a linguistic robot, Bart runs off to steal fireworks, and Homer cuts his thumb off. Well, Marge accidentally cuts Homer's thumb off because he was too busy trying to steal brownies. and each section of their storylines converge and like interplace among them. It's almost like a mosaic, hyperlink storyline, which are always my favorite storylines. I love movies like Shortcuts and Pulp Fiction or Survival Style 5, where it's just like all these character beats like can actually like bump into each other anytime during the narrative, and it always makes it fun and light. And I don't know, I really appreciate the writing of this episode. I think my if I had to pick which section I like the most... Oh yeah, I forgot Frankie Muniz is in this episode too.
Oh, that's right.
You remember him?
Yeah, for like a minute.
Another early 2000s relic.
Yeah.
Man, this is nostalgic.
I know, right? Isn't it amazing when you watch something from like 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
April 2001, so almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. Right? Oh boy.
Indeed.
I don't know why. I think one part that always kills me in this episode is when Homer's on the highway. He knows he won't be able to recover his thumb, so he throws it in the trash. He's like, "Say goodbye to your brother." And then an explosion occurs off screen. And he's just like, "What the hell?" Lengua.
But that serves as the segue into Bart's side of the story.
Yeah, the ending of Bart's
story. It's kind of nice how like the sort of commercial breaks actually blend everything together.
Yeah.
Well, it's how they cap off each episode. Or each section of the episode, I should say.
What I find so fascinating about the Simpsons episodes is the commercial breaks divide the episode into 3 acts. So they literally have, you know, commercial breaks.
They used to do that.
Yeah.
It's stylistically designed to be that way.
Yeah.
If you take out one part, then the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
We may have gone too far in a few places.
Oh, yeah. When did George Lucas work on The Simpsons?
Never. Well, there was that one episode. One episode that parodied him that we aren't going to talk about.
Parody, but
the neat thing about Trilogy of Error is obviously, as Lyle mentioned, the homage to Go, but also this is the first I had sort of seen something like Run Lola Run, which obviously I would only watch that later, but that's another sort of good film comparison if you like that sort of meta interconnecting storyline.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get 3 tries to get it right. Yeah, and Lisa even runs to the music from Run Lola Run. I just watched that film for the first time this year, so like I appreciated.
And can we all take a moment to mention how awesome Linguo is as a noble sacrificial lamb?
Hey, shut your face!
Shut up your face.
This episode is also a personal favorite. I almost picked it too, but I think the writing is incredibly sharp. Some of the best kind of payoffs in the whole show. But for years and years, if I ever had to fill out a form online that asked for my address but wasn't like a necessitated one just showing up, if I had to plug in an address to please the internet gods, I would always write in 123 Fake Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Teeny at the end. This plot made no sense. Tell them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, please, if you like this episode, please check out Go, because I think it's super underrated. It's a super underrated 90s movie. Trilogy of Error is probably like the greatest gem of this era of The Simpsons to me, so happy to revisit it.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. My pick for season 12 is The Great Money Caper. This is an episode where the family needs money, despite the fact that Homer works at a nuclear power plant and should be making
Does he really work, though?
That's a good point. That's probably why they're always in such constant financial trouble. Because Mr. Burns keeps docking his pay, like, while you know he's not looking. I feel like Homer could be like the Milton of the power plant, where it's like, I need my stapler. I need my donut.
Milton works though. He just doesn't. He got laid off and nobody told him.
Yeah, like, do you think that was what happened with Homer?
I didn't receive my paycheck.
Do you think that's what happened with Homer, where like the plant laid him off like 10, 20 years ago and no one told him?
Nobody paid him this whole time.
That'd be a really dark episode idea to consider one day.
No, an Office Space where like instead of burning down the plant, he causes a nuclear meltdown that
we
destroys
need to have
the town.
Mike Judge guest star in this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, that should be a Treehouse of Horror segment.
I mean, impossible ideas.
I don't know.
Hey, Simpsons writers, if you're listening to this,
we're doing your job for you.
Yeah, we want royalties.
Bitch.
But anyways, so the great money caper. The family needs money, and to get money, Homer and Bart realize that they can become grifters, and then they get out grifted by the whole town. The whole episode, I find, actually has some funny jokes. First of all, how they need money, they come to need money, is truly hilarious, because an exotic fish drops out of the sky from what looks like nowhere, but it turns out it fell from the Russian space station and dents the hood of the car so badly that they need to repair it. So then Homer and Bart, basically, they use a magic trick that Bart bought to basically con people into giving them money. Like, they will look all helpless and sad, and then strangers will give them money. And then eventually an FBI agent, or so you think, catches on to their antics and throws them in jail. But then, so they make up a story about how they're carjacked, and then it almost involves Willie, going to jail for life. But it turns out the whole thing was a ruse to teach them a lesson. So it's kind of a gotcha episode. And by the way, you want to talk... A reoccurring theme in our podcast today seems to be guest stars that are unrecognizable. Edward Norton is the guest star, and this is actually something that took me... Because I guess I must have not paid attention to the credits, but I had seen this episode like 3 or 4 times before in my life, and I only figured out that Edward Norton plays the fake FBI agent on my 5th or 6th viewing. Like, he's so good. Like, he actually tries to be a character. That's the cool thing I like about a lot of these guest stars, is that instead of being themselves, they play characters, and when they play characters, it's sometimes hard to tell that it's them.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure if there's like a specific term for this style of writing, but really good Simpsons episodes do this thing where they'll double down on the reveal or whatever. So they'll be like, "Hey, this was all a ruse. No, wait, this was all a ruse that I planned to teach you a lesson." And that goes on a lot in this episode. I think the Simpsons is probably responsible for that.
Bait and switch. Is that the term?
Yeah, it's a really good bait and switch.
All right.
And then the actual ending is just hilarious, because it's a grift within a grift within a grift. Hey everybody, surf's up!
Yeah,
it just ends.
Yeah. Can we say griftception?
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a fun, short, sweet, fun little episode. I have fun with it. So, Josh, what's your pick for season 12?
My pick for season 12, well, it would have been Lyle's pick, but I also picked an episode that is equally as great, and in some ways actually did foreshadow events in real life, and that is Hungry Hungry Homer.
This was a close contender for me too.
Oh yeah.
Homer accidentally stumbles into a secret room in the front office of the Springfield Isotopes with a bunch of Albuquerque Isotopes merchandise, and he finds out that the team is secretly planning to move to Albuquerque, New Mexico after the end of the season. Of course, Howard K. Duff VIII, he realizes Homer knows, and so they hide the evidence before Homer can actually report it to anybody. Like when he tries to show people, they just see an empty broom closet. So he decides to stage a hunger strike until Duff admits that they are planning to move the team. He literally chains himself to a light post in front of the stadium, and he goes on a hunger strike it ends up being 12 days, until it turns out that the hot dog wrappers spoil the move, and then everyone realizes Homer was right, and he's vindicated. And it actually did foreshadow the creation of a minor league baseball team, a AAA minor league baseball team called the Albuquerque Isotopes.
Oh yeah,
a lot of fun.
We talk about how The Simpsons predicts the future like every now and again. I guess this is one of those times.
And speaking of Star Wars, because you two love that so much, Duffman has his own Return of the Jedi moment near the end, where he decides to stand up for Homer, and he throws Howard K. Duff VIII over the fence, a la Vader to Palpatine.
Oh yeah, isn't that the one where? Is this the episode where Stacy Keach plays like the team owner?
Yes.
Oh, he comes back in a later episode.
He does. I also love the hungry song that Homer sings. Dancing away my hunger pangs. moving my feet so my stomach won't hurt. I'm kind of like Jesus, but not in a sacrilegious way.
Oh
And to
God.
think this all started because they went to Blocko Land, and Homer stood up for Lisa by getting her a replacement Eiffel Tower piece, and he felt really good helping the little guy.
Yeah.
We'll get
And
to
he
that
said,
one.
and I
day.
gave the guy directions, even though I didn't know where that was. I'm paraphrasing, because that's just who I am this week. I'm like, Homer, stop giving Fall Out Boy good ideas. I only realized that could have been a line from Sugar We're Going Down like earlier this week. I'm like, that sounds familiar. Where have I heard it before? Right.
Yeah.
I like that though. I mean, I'm looking at the not so subtle plug. I'm using the wonderful episode guide called Simpsons World to refer to all these episodes.
Yeah.
And it just got the picture of Homer trying to pick up a half-eaten pretzel, and he looks so thin. But the idea of Homer doing something really noble like a hunger strike, even though he doesn't fully like contemplate like what the risks are involved,
Well, he
it's a
never
very
does.
noble cause.
Yeah.
And it's one of those few times where Homer does something because he believes in it, and he ends up, be vindicated for it in the end.
Yeah. Well.
Reminds me of that episode where he had to climb a mountain all by himself.
Oh yeah, King of the
Mountain
Hill.
of Madness?
not
Oh,
all
King
by
of the
himself.
Hill.
King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Not that King of the Hill.
Yeah, not the Mike Judge King of the Hill.
Whoa.
Yeah. I love but yeah, no, that's a good point you make about, going on a hunger strike, cuz you people say they'll do crazy things to protest, like in recent times in the world we live in, we see some, gun-stroking maniacs say they'll start a civil war over the results of an election, but they don't understand, like, what the consequences of that really will be. I think they do, because no one has actually tried to do something crazy as of this recording, but yeah. Also, yeah, I actually knew a guy who said he was going to do a hunger strike, and then he didn't do it, so, yeah.
I guess
Although
you
what's
could
interesting
say...
is there's a little thing near the end where he's visited by the ghost of Cesar Chavez, who is encouraging him to fight on. I'm like, I think Homer only knew who that was because Lisa taught him about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, who are you, the spirit of Cesar Chavez? Why do you look like Cesar Romero? Because you don't know what Cesar Chavez looks like. New feelings brewing in Duffman. What would Jesus do?
So Evan, I guess that guy who did the attempt to do the hunger strike ended up eating his own words.
Yeah.
But,
I see. I thought when I think Hungry Hungry Homer, I think either a Hungry Hungry Hippos commercial or I Am Evil Homer, I Am Evil Homer. That song.
Yeah.
It's not a title that immediately strikes me, but yeah, when I was a kid, I freaking loved the episode where Homer went on hunger strike because like he's so desperately hungry by the end.
Yeah.
And hence the line, "Me so hungry."
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
And like the fact that the Albuquerque isotopes came into existence, literally, I believe a few years after the episode aired, it was like, I think one of the owners said or something along the lines of the episode played a major it certainly played a factor in them deciding to open up the team here.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like when they held the vote for the name, there was 67% of the votes were the isotopes. When they renamed the cannons, was the Calgary Cannons when they moved from Alberta to Albuquerque. So in other words, Hungry Hungry Homer literally happened in Calgary, or maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
That's it. The Simpsons are going to Calgary.
You think that they would have done an episode that parodies the Stampede at this point, considering how, Homer loves burgers and...
As an aside, is there not an episode where there's like a rodeo involved? No, there's a later one where Lisa's a ranch hand. That's Dude, Where's My Ranch? But
There's also the Last Gun in the West, and there's Colonel Homer, but none of those have to do with Calgary.
Whichever one will get us the song Space
Michael's trying to say
Cowboy by
something.
Instinct played in the middle in a montage, I will take that one.
What are you saying, Michael?
My previous pick, Pokemon, it starts at a prison rodeo. That's the sort of like A plot that kind of the episode.
But yeah, so I guess can we move on to? Are we cool to move on to season 13? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, what a lucky
13,
number!
where I feel the show began its real decline.
I mean, don't be so sure. One of my all-time favorite episodes of the whole show is in this, but I'll get to that in a second. So, Michael, what did you pick for this season?
So I picked Tales from the Public Domain. which is a sort of anthology episode where the Simpsons are kind of cast in the world, first in the world of the Odyssey, and then they tell the story of Joan of Arc, and then they retell Hamlet. I like this episode because I like when the Simpsons do anthology episodes like this where they kind of cast their main cast of characters into like other stories. I find it's always very creative.
Yeah.
I like. I said this a lot in the Treehouse of Horror episode we did last month, but The Simpsons is a much smarter show than critics of it give it credit for. Like, I think when it first came on the scene, it was easy to dismiss as being a kind of like a dumb show. But the writers are all usually very highly educated, very smart people. So the fact that this is like kind of an educational episode is something I really respect.
Yeah.
Like, I remember taking great pleasure in this episode as like a kid and a young teenager because I was like learning about the things that are like in this episode.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to be like a nerd about it, but like if someone can learn something cool about history or about literature from this episode, I'm like, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And it's like they might not be learning the fundamentals of what they're being taught about the actual times, but if they can kind of like glean some cool references from this episode, I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Sure. And there's some hilarious physical comedy in like all parts of it. There's just like some weird stuff about like Homer kind of cannibalizing his friends, and then there's this like horrifically violent like Hamlet recreation. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's the right amount of history and education for a Simpsons episode for me.
Yeah.
Man, the very first, like, every section in here actually has some like interesting storytelling in it. I mean, Don't Brother, Where Art Thou has it has a funny line from Flanders as, I guess, the king of Troy. Now, throughout history, when people get wood, they'll think of Trojans. Which is not the first quantum joke in the Simpsons.
Yeah.
That is like such a mind-blowing like double entendre though. Like the pieces that had to fit together for that joke to work are incredible.
Yeah.
Hot Child in the City is kind of interesting only because it does stay somewhat faithful to the actual Joan of Arc story until the end comes, and of course Marge, being the typical overprotective parent, takes the ending and eats it, and then says, "Well, it's easier to chew than that Bambi video."
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that and being annoyed because like I actually was interested, like, you know, similar style to Michael. I was interested in knowing the real story of Joan of Arc, and then Marge kind of hijacks that and makes up her own ending.
A mainstream cartoon telling you a real historical story that ends in a tragedy.
Yeah, and then I think I had to ask
You're
you.
best looking elsewhere.
I think after I saw that episode, Josh, I asked you at school the next day, like, you know, what happened to the real Joan of Arc, and then you told me, and then I'm like, oh, that's why.
Oh wow, I knew things back then. Wow.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it's like, because Marge's like, just then Sir Lancelot rode up on a white horse and saved Joan of Arc. They got married and lived in a spaceship. The end. Rips out the end. I'm like, did anybody die on the way back to their home planet though?
Oh, I see.
At the end of Do the Bardman was kind of a bit dumb though. As much as I like a retelling of Hamlet, it's like Romeo and Juliet, where where the main people just kill themselves because, you know, they don't think they have any other options. Like, everybody kills everybody, and then Marge's character just kills herself with a mace so she doesn't have to clean up.
Yeah. Now,
it's like we ran out of storytelling. Like, we couldn't think of a better way to end this.
Yeah. Now, I've been curious as to what the first anthology episode was in the history of The Simpsons, not including a Treehouse of Horror episode, but the first anthology episode where they get all the key characters on the show to play characters either in a real fictional story or a historical event.
Simpsons Bible Stories.
Oh, Simpsons Bible Stories was the first one to do that?
I believe that is season 10.
What about the one
there might be an earlier one.
What about the one where it's historical figures and Bart is Mozart? Oh, is that Magical History Tour?
Yeah.
That is, okay. I believe, a little later.
That's in season
14. Anthology earlier.
That's in season 14, you're right, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so... But yeah, no, I feel like it's great that you got like some actual learning value out of it, Michael. For me, The Simpsons as a whole taught me like everything I need to know about pop culture and just life in the United States and in Canada to some degree too. But yeah.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how comedy can do that. And just for the record, the reason Barbara and George Bush Sr. were parodied on the show so much in the golden years is because both of them were on record during like their political careers saying that they thought The Simpsons was the stupidest shit ever. And then that guy became a one-termer. Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. So, is that all you have to say about the Tales from the Public Domain?
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing.
Tales from the Punk Domain?
The Public Domain. Oh, but they end the episode by dancing to the Ghostbusters theme, and it's adorable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
that was a really hilarious and random, like, non sequitur. But it's...
Yeah, it works.
Like, Homer alludes to the fact that Hamlet is now a famous movie, which is... It is now several famous movies, and it's also been adapted into things like The Lion King, but he just decides to reference Ghostbusters, and yeah, that's such a hilarious, funny,
Yeah.
like, random moment.
Hamlet has ghosts, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess... Oh, I never even thought of it that way. But
That's what he meant. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I just pulled that out of my ass, so I don't know, maybe that's what the connection was. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shall we carry on?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay. So my pick for season 13 is Homer to the Moe. To summarize this episode, Moe loses his lust for life. I didn't even know he had one to begin with. He goes to his old university to kind of get his taste of being a bartender back again, and in the meantime, Homer's the owner of Moe's, because, hey, who needs a power plant, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, like, when I was a kid, I didn't have the luxury of having, like, any of the seasons of The Simpsons on DVD, so, like, the next best thing was getting those, like, 4-episode DVD packs. And the only one I owned was Simpsons Gone Wild. And that one had a couple not so bad episodes, like The Mansion Family or, like, Sunday Cruddy Sunday. I actually really hate Homer's Night Out. I actually really hate that episode from season 1. But, like, the one episode I really loved in that collection was Homer to the Moe, just because that was the one I watched endlessly. It's a pretty solid episode. Some of my favorite bits are, like, when Moe is with his professor.
At bartending
It's like,
school.
Look at the water. Look how it glistens so. I'm dying, Moe. Oh, well, is there anything I can do? No, unless you have a cure for cancer. Do you have a cure for cancer? Because that would be great. I'm sorry, Professor. Goodbye, Moe. And he just walks into the lake. He's like, don't you want to take his shoes off before you go swimming? Professor?
That's just one of the most, like, it's a pretty dark thing for Mo to just, like, have to deal with like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
It's funny seeing, like, a content Moe. Oh, this is also a Thanksgiving episode, I should mention.
Yeah.
Just plopped out in the middle of the end. Yeah.
With a tofu turkey.
Yeah, like, Homer,
Right.
Homer, basically near the halfway point of the show, Moe totally redesigns Moe's into Po Mau or something. Like, it becomes a postmodern bar for all the hipsters out there. Unless you're being ironic, turn that off right now. And obviously the barflies, you know, they don't fit in there, so they get kicked out. So Homer builds a bar.
In his garage.
In his fucking garage. Oh, which leads to one of my favorite musical cameos with REM playing in the garage.
Yeah.
Leonard, what's his name? Herman Munster Motorcade, birthday party Cheetos, Pogo Sticks and Lemonade, Symbiotic Stupid Jerks.
That's right, Flanders. I am talking about you.
It's the end of the world.
They think they're saving the rainforest. Suckers.
You lied to us.
Hey, you lied to us.
No, that's
It's not the REM way. You're right. Let's go shovel these shards and throw them in a recycling bin.
Yeah.
Are you sure these guys are millionaires? Come on, they have a bar in their garage. Yeah, REM's like one of my favorite bands. So even though you could basically replace them with any alternative band, really, in this episode.
Who are you gonna get?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the environmentalist bit was pretty good too.
Yeah.
And I love how they actually have, like, Thanksgiving with REM. Is like, I'm with my best friend, my family, these alternative rockers. Yeah. And they bring a tofu turkey. So, yeah. It's a pretty nice, like, I don't know, it's just an all-around pretty solid episode that I just always remember fondly.
Yeah.
Because I watched it so much.
But who thought it was a good idea to just suspend bunnies in midair like that?
No, this one's not moving.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, who needs an oxygen bar
Yeah.
where you can get the
Oh,
bends?
right.
Lenny, I need you to stand on my chest. I think I'm getting the bends. Ugh.
I have the same relationship kind of with this episode that you do, Lyle, because I do remember it being on those sort of specialty DVDs, and I remember watching that episode a lot just because it was like one of the ones I owned.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was a highlight for sure. Definitely, like...
Yeah.
I love how it's like, I never get one lousy tip. Well, maybe if we tip you if you'd smile once in a while. How about this? Yeah, don't do that.
And in the same season, the Pygmalion episode, like
where he gets all handsome again.
He gets a face restructuring surgery after the Duff calendar refuses to put his ugly ass smile on their calendar.
There's quite a few Mo episodes throughout this section of the show, but yeah, this one is probably my favorite. Yeah. It's weird, on the DVD it was called Homer the Mo. It was like a typo, so all this time...
Or was it Homer to the Mo?
It's Homer to the Mo, but on the DVD of Simpsons Go Wild or whatever, it's called Homer the Mo.
And that's a good point.
No, actually, the other way around. Homer to the Mo is the typo. Homer the Mo is the actual episode title.
Okay, so Disney took it upon them.
I'm reading the book. It says Homer the Mo.
Yeah, that's right. I remember going on.
Okay, I'm gonna look at this up on Wikipedia.
No, I remember going on the Simpsons official website back in the day and looking up the episode guide, and it was called Homer the Mo. So Disney Plus literally took it upon themselves to add a word to the episode.
Okay, so it is called Homer the Mo. Interesting.
Hold on a minute. Let me check this
Wikipedia says Homer the Mo.
Oh, yeah. Wait, Disney makes mistakes? That's impossible.
And then...
They're a multi-million-dollar corporation. They can't ignore a simple word.
This is weird because like IMDb, Wikipedia, and Simpsons Wiki all say Homer the Mo, but like Google says Homer to the Mo.
Yeah,
Simpsons season 13.
Two words, Josh, about Disney Plus and mistakes. Error 83.
I haven't encountered that yet, but at the same time, it's like, and nothing of value was necessary.
If you watch Disney Plus, I find if you watch Disney Plus on a laptop more so, or a computer more so than on a TV or a console streaming service, then Error 83 is far less likely to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so that's weird. I guess it's called Homer the Mo now.
Yeah.
Freaking Disney Plus, you lied to me. Stupid mouse.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe. Alright, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. So, the episode I'd like to talk about is one of my all-time favorites in the whole show. And I'm going to, before I even go into the title, I'm actually going to sum it up in 3 quotes. They call me Mellow Yellow, quite rightly. Grrr! Grrr! Homer mad! Grrr! He can't be the Hulk. I'm the Hulk. Grrr! Grrr! Come on, damn it, change!
Evan, thanks for breaking the microphone, bud.
I am Furious Yellow. I am Furious...
I have some minor issues with this one as well, but go ahead.
Okay, so I think this has some of the funniest jokes in post-season 10 era of The Simpsons, where... First of all, the episode has a perfectly coherent narrative. Basically, it starts with Bart, looking for a passion in life, and he decides to become a comic book artist, and then that's how Stan Lee comes into the picture, because Stan Lee hangs around the comic book guy's shop, just harassing customers. That's the best part about it. Oh, Stan Lee came back? Stan Lee never left. And he's just harassing people, getting them to buy stupid Marvel shit. And then basically Bart creates a comic by basically turning Homer's angry tantrums into comics, and then the comic gets turned into an internet cartoon, which were all the rage back in the early 2000s when the internet became a vessel for, even before YouTube, the internet became a vessel for cartoons, except they were launched on like their own exclusive streaming websites where like
places like Newgrounds or Albino Black Sheep.
pretty much, yeah. Like I remember
Wow, I haven't heard in a while.
well, I remember, Josh, when we were in grade 8, when our friends got access to a
Angry Black Sheep, that was the one.
Yeah, our friends would get access to like underground websites like that predate YouTube, where they could, before YouTube existed, you had to go watch all the funny internet cartoons on like individual websites like break.com or bigboy.com, which is what it was called.
Miniclip was a thing too.
Funnyjunk.com, stupidvideos.com. YouTube dethroned all of them.
This is when the .com boom was still kind of a thing, and this episode does kind of comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, like angrydad.tv.com or something. But basically, they decide to pull the ultimate prank on Homer, and I broke the microphone because Homer turns into the Incredible Hulk thanks to a pool of green paint. And then... yeah, and Stanley is just a gem of a celebrity guest star in this episode. May he rest in peace. But yeah, the jokes are hilarious. I think Hulk Homer, I remember seeing that for the first time when I was in elementary school, watching it one summer day on TV, and just, I couldn't stop laughing like for 5 straight minutes after the credits were rolling. Like, it was so funny. Yeah, it's just a funny episode. I loved the jokes. I love how in tune they were with how internet cartoons were like rising in popularity, and how comics still meant that much to kids. But overall, like, it's a poignant episode. It's hilarious. I love it.
I just love all the angry dad bits.
Oh yeah, the angry dad bits are hilarious. I love how the same company that wants to make Angry Dad into an internet cartoon is like, hey, check out our other hit, Bin Laden in a Blender. And then it's like, it shows literally like a cartoon of Osama Bin Laden in a blender, like, and then Lisa's like, and then Lisa's like, well, it delivers what it promises.
It's like every Joe cartoon.
Yeah.
For those of you who remember back in the day.
Yeah.
This particular episode, to me, begins to sort of exemplify the, at times, over-reliance on gross-out humor sometimes within the series, because they see, well, Family Guy is doing it and South Park does it.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we should do it too.
Yeah.
Well,
mainly with the whole Danger Dog thing. This is a nitpick, I'm aware, but it kind of felt like it was just one of those things to, like, let's make what we think a cartoon that directly appeals to edgy preteens looks like. Like
gross out humor, yeah, I agree. Is that, I'm curious as to what your issues are with this episode. Yeah.
I think it was mostly that. Well, it also does an interesting sort of aside as to, like, throughout the episode, as Homer gets angrier and angrier, the, like, boils on the side of his neck start to get more visible, and he has to, like, push them back in, because apparently that's what, when Homer isn't angry, like, the rage gets, internally stored up somewhere until, like, essentially he explodes at the end of the episode. So it's like, that's an interesting aside as to, like, what's a healthy way for Homer to deal with his anger issues, because it's clear he still has them many years later.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I think it's just mostly that, like, it's a highlight of internet cartoons can be well written and well done and thought provoking, but then a lot of times they're just, edgy things made to appeal to kids and not really have a lot of replay value.
Yeah, just a lot of screaming matches.
Yeah.
People screaming online.
Do you think it's kind of like the Bart gets an F for Homer? Because Bart gets an F is a very heartfelt episode where Bart tries his damnedest to get, a passing grade, and he does by a hair, and then for the rest of the show, he just keeps getting Fs and Fs, and it never improves. Do you think that kind of is the same thing with Homer, where, like, he actually finds a way to deal with his anger, sorta, in this episode? And then...
No, because this keeps coming back later on.
Well, that's my point. Like, Bart barely got a passing grade, but then he just kept getting Fs for the rest of the show.
He's always in that grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's a reason he never leaves 4th grade.
And in one point, he actually goes back a grade too. But Stan Lee does kind of there are the Stan Lee moments are nice here, but he's also in a few other episodes later on in the series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if there are any in this era or post season 20, but it wasn't. It was. I guess it's more if you're a cartoonist or you're into comics, then maybe this episode appeals to you more.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh, what's your pick?
My pick is actually one that is Homer focused as well, but does actually have a little bit of an interesting sort of deep dive at the end into his psyche, and that is the blunder years. Essentially, Homer is hypnotized by this hypnotist Mesmerino back to when he was 12 years old, and then he starts screaming
Incessantly.
incessantly, to the point where the rest of the family are trying to figure out what could have caused this. And it turns out, to make a long story short, when Homer and Lenny and Carl were 12, and also Moe's there for some reason, they walk along some railroad tracks and they're going to go swimming in the creek. Then they see that the creek is empty. Of course, no one actually wants to dive down there till Homer does, but then he unblocks whatever was causing it, and it was a dead body. And anyone that hasn't seen Stand By Me now, sorry about that.
Yeah, well, this is the... I call this episode the Stand By Me episode, and funny story, this past summer, I think, Michael put on Stand By Me on Netflix Party, and we watched it virtually, and then after that episode was done, we streamed the Blunder Years.
It gets more interesting, though, because with Chief Wiggum's help, the family tries to actually figure out how that corpse got there. They follow the pipe that it came out of, and it turns out it's like a trap door from Mr. Burns' office, where we find out that corpse was actually Waylon Smithers Sr., who nobly sacrificed his life to save Springfield from a potential meltdown. And it's actually a bit of character development for Smithers, because he always, he thought that his father was like beaten to death by a group of Amazon women.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting for Mr. Burns, because it's like, if you see one video this year, if you see only one film this year that proves my innocence, make it this one. And it was nice to see, Homer actually get some closure on something that he didn't even realize was, that he had been repressing. And there's kind of an interesting note about, like, what other, screwed up things are other characters repressing that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It works as such a perfect complement to the movie that it's referencing, like Stand By Me. And this is why this era and the previous era of The Simpsons, like, they're just so good at doing those movie references, because the homages that they do are just so, like, well crafted. Like a lot of satirical shows, when they're making fun of a movie, they just, they revert to, like, gross out humor, just cheap gags or whatever. But, like, this is like a show that can actually, like, structure a good chunk of an episode over paying, like, good homage to a movie.
There's a bit of a brief B plot where Marge falls in love with the burly paper towel salesman. Like, that's sort of like that's actually more the catalyst for the overarching plot of the entire thing.
And it pays off in the end, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It does. And then, of course, Moe tries to, also show like he figured out the mystery, even though they already solved it. But they're nice and they let him go on about it during the credits anyway.
Bless his heart.
Yeah.
I definitely want more episodes where, Homer and Lenny and Carl are bonding as kids, because they kind of established in some of the previous episodes, and mostly, like, I think The Way We Were, like, Homer and Barney were in high school together, and a later one, Homer, Lenny, and Carl are at camp together, so it kind of plays a bit fast and loose with, like, how long these characters have exactly known each other for.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say about that.
Cool.
Nice.
Season 14.
We're almost halfway
Here we
there.
go.
Yeah, cool.
Almost.
All right. So my pick for 14 is an episode called A Star Is Born Again. Actually, not a parody of A Star Is Born, but is a parody of another 90s movie, Notting Hill. And it's about Ned he's still a few years on, or however time works in the Simpsons universe. He's still mourning the death of Maud Flanders, and he happens to meet a very famous American movie star who comes and just visits him in his shop. He falls in love with this movie star named Sarah, who is voiced by Marissa Tomei.
Sarah Sloan,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's another episode that is definitely buoyed up by the presence of its of its guest star. Like,
yeah.
She is a character, like an actual genuine character that drives the story forward, and
Yeah.
she's very funny in the role. She's very sweet in the role. She's very trying to be understanding of Ned's grappling feelings for his late wife. But I think this is kind of a sweet episode because it's like Maud is gone and he knows that, but he hasn't quite been able to accept that yet. And Maud's death is one of the more kind of permanent instances of continuity in the show, as we kind of alluded to earlier. And it's just kind of like a story about like kind of moving on and kind of trying to do the best thing and put your best foot forward. And it's not always easy. The episode makes that message very clear, but it's kind of just a Ned centric episode that I feel is kind of sweet. And there's this one sort of funny, weird montage where Ned pictures his own life in Hollywood. And
Oh, God.
long time, I like that they kind of did this sort of meta joke, but long time Simpsons producer James L. Brooks actually makes an appearance as himself in the dream sequence montage thing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
so I just thought that was kind of a funny kind of self-deprecating jab. Yeah, it's all around. I find it's a very watchable episode, and I've gone back to it numerous times, and
Yeah.
I always appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the that's what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's a good episode. I feel like the name Sarah Sloan is a parody of Sharon Stone, who has nothing to do with this episode. But I mean, Sarah
There's no Basic Instinct.
Well, I mean, like in this episode, this actress is one of those like over-sexualized actresses, and Sarah Sloan was a huge and Sharon Stone, was a huge sex symbol in real life. So
Yep.
yeah, but yeah, no, it's a sweet episode. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Whenever you see Flanders without a shirt on, Homeboy is ripped, like Swole Patrol.
That's what he doesn't realize. It's like that One Direction song, "You Don't Know You're Beautiful." I don't think Ned realizes, his own attractiveness can certainly play a role. I mean, you saw A Streetcar Named Marge, right? Like, he was
yeah.
ripped even back then.
And he's in
Yeah.
his 50s, too.
No, he's
50s or 60s?
He's technically in his 60s because at one point, Homer catches him using a senior's discount, and at first Homer thinks he's abusing it, and rightfully so, because Flanders looks like he's Homer's age. The reality is Flanders is actually like about 25 years older than Homer, but he's aged so well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the catalyst for the Hangover-esque Las Vegas episode.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Viva Ned Flanders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a cool episode. Yeah. Bob Balaban is a sad little punchline in this episode because yeah, poor Bob Balaban. Yeah.
That I might get into this a bit more in my kind of in a later episode I picked, but the fact that they chose Bob Balaban, like specifically him, like that character actor for that joke, just really made me laugh.
Yeah.
It's a shame they didn't think of doing this. Bob Balaban.
Oh man.
Bob,
Okay.
What a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So
Shall we carry on?
yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay. Short and sweet. Alright. My next episode of season 14 is another Mo episode, actually. I picked Mo Better Blues.
Mo Baby Blues.
Mo Baby Blues?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mo Better Blues was
okay,
the name
my
of
bad. Anyways, yes. Mo Baby Blues is another episode where Mo just is like down on his luck. Nobody wants him around. They all go to some botanical garden to witness this century flower bloom for the first time in ages. And Mo kind of
Or
dodges.
should I say the corpse flower?
Yeah, and Mo is, for the first time ever, actually dodges a bullet because it releases a toxic, gaseous, noxious fume that basically kills all the flowers in the botanical. That's kind of a poor investment, really, if you're a garden that like is open to the public.
Yeah.
You get a plant that can literally kill every other plant. Oh, I love this one bit where Homer, like, they're looking at a Venus flytrap, and it's like, it lures its prey in with a scent. And Homer's like, yeah, it'd be pretty stupid to be tricked by a plant.
How does a plant have a hot dog in its mouth?
Yeah, it's got a lure. I guess it eats people. But I don't know why Homer puts himself head first into the plant. It bites at Homer, and then Homer eats through the goddamn plant. Flower power my ass. Homer's just a dick to plants, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Well, unless it's medical marijuana.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All fine with that.
I remember a weekend at Burnsies.
But that's just the beginning of the episode. Mo tries to kill himself again, and while they're trying to drive out of the crowded area when everyone's evacuating the gardens, Homer has to pull an incredibly harsh stop. He brakes hard, and Maggie's like safety belt breaks. She gets flung out of the car.
Courtesy of crappy latch.
Crappy latch. Well, you get what you pay for, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaks for itself. She flies through the sunroof and nearly falls to her death on the bridge, but Mo just happens to be at the edge of the bridge there, and he catches her just in time. And this causes a really, really, really deep bond between Mo and Maggie, and Mo agrees to take care of her throughout most of the episode, and ends up being a more attentive parent than Homer and Marge combined.
Yeah.
So I think I picked this episode because it's just nice to see Mo happy for once.
Yeah. For once.
With like no caveat, just really he gets along with Maggie quite well. He recounts to her the entirety of the Godfather trilogy, which I thought was funny as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole episode, but it's just it was a very sweet episode in an otherwise kind of clunky season.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see an episode that kind of moved me a little. So
yeah.
Hang in there, Mo.
Yeah.
The ones where Maggie is the focus are usually some of the better ones because she rarely gets any real proper development. And so, especially with Mo, who is often underdeveloped a lot of the time, they work really well off each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's an interesting combination.
There was I'm not sure if they're still in print. I don't think they are. But when they used to do Simpsons comics that were popular in the 90s and 2000s, there was like a semi-recurring panel that was just about Maggie and Mo.
Oh.
And they always made like a pretty cute kind of double act.
Maybe that was after this episode aired.
Possibly.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was that they started it after this episode aired, because I know I had at one point a lot of the compilations of them.
Yeah.
I maybe saw some of it, but I don't know if it was before this era. It's a shame they stopped printing them in 2018, though.
Simpsons comics.
Okay.
Those were my childhood.
Wow.
A couple of years ago. I love one of my favorite parts of Mo Baby Blues is just like the little, like obviously the Maggie Mo interaction, but Homer's little rejection song when Maggie wants to spend more time with Mo instead. The squirmy, wormy spider squirts out of Daddy's head. Daddy feels rejected. He's gonna eat some cake. I should be like laughing to that. Just
He's gonna eat some cake.
My favorite joke in that episode is when Mo creates like a little dollhouse of his bar, and it's like with classic drunk Barney, and then there's this little voice chip of Barney belching. It's classic, and then Homer's voice chip goes, I peed my pants! And then Homer's like, hey, I recorded that for confidentiality purposes or something. I don't remember what the line was, but yeah. All I remember was like the joke was, I peed my pants!
Baby go boom boom.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a sweet episode.
No, that's a nice one. Yeah. Definitely check it out.
Yeah. My episode is the Great Lyle's Detective from season 14. My personal. I have a few favorites from this season, quite honestly, for different reasons. But this one I think got the biggest laugh out of me and Lyle when we actually rewatched it, because it's a funny episode. but it's in the Sideshow Bob saga, and it also somehow manages to be an unceremonious sequel to Homer's Enemy, and I'll tell you why.
Oh yeah.
A guy,
Which was such a great choice.
someone mysteriously tries to off Homer in a sauna by cranking up the heat dial to like insanely unhealthy levels. So Homer becomes a prune, and so they figured if there's someone gunning for Homer, let's get a real serial killer who's been on this show for a while to hunt down a serial killer, and they get Sideshow Bob. Sideshow Bob has to live with the Simpsons, much to the horror of Bart, and so basically the de facto, the only thing stopping Sideshow Bob from slitting Bart's throat at any given moment is a shocking device that's taped to his ankle.
Which Bart totally doesn't take advantage of.
Yeah. Though they get some good jokes out of the shock treatment therapy for Bob whenever they feel like it.
Some shock humor, if you will.
I'm major spoiler for this episode, but the reason why I said it's a sequel to Homer's Enemy is because the killer turns out to be the son of Frank Grimes Jr. And then how the reveal happens is actually hilarious. So they back him into a corner, and then it's like, Junior! Frank Grimes Jr. Frank Grimes. Ugh, your ape-like incompetence drove my father insane. And then
it literally flashes back to Homer's Enemy.
It literally flashes back to that infamous clip when Frankie or Grimy just, grabs the extremely high voltage cables without gloves because he's Homer Simpson after all.
No, he's Homer Simpson.
Oh, God. You have no bedside manner whatsoever, Lyle. But anyways, so then in the then after that clip plays for the audience's reference, Homer goes, "Oh yeah, how is old Grimy? He's dead, like you should be." And then it's like, "But wait a minute, Frank Grimes wasn't married. How could he have a son? He happened to like hookers, okay?" And then Lyle has something to say.
That raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, no.
First of all, how can Grimes afford a prostitute if he can barely, get a job or, hold down a proper home? And, he's such a smart guy, but he has unprotected sex with hookers? I mean...
Well, I guess even the good moments in his life have to have a dark twist to them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's something you don't even think about. I mean...
It wouldn't be something related to Grimy without there being a dark twist.
Yeah.
That's a pretty grimy fact about Grimy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boo!
Yeah.
I'm here all week.
Yeah. And then the episode airs. The episode ends with a little parody of a musical with Sideshow Bob and Bart. It's like, I've grown accustomed to your face. You've grown accustomed to my face. This isn't a duet. And then. Yeah, I know. It's just a funny episode. I love seeing, all the jokes that come with Homer being in imminent mortal danger, because this episode actually milks that hilarious premise for every joke it's worth, quite honestly. And it's good to see Sideshow Bob be funny rather than horrifying.
Yeah, I like it when they change the dynamic with Bob, where he actually has to help our main characters rather than try to hunt them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
How about that?
I often don't love when The Simpsons relies on a previous episode to set up this episode, but because it often just kind of comes off as diminished returns in my opinion. But I think this is really an episode that is an exception, because I think the Grimy reveal is really funny. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, it's a funny episode. Even if the killer wasn't, they didn't have to make the killer Frank Grimes Jr. It could have been anyone. But the fact that they got Sideshow Bob to actually be the good guy is more than enough. But the fact that they actually somehow managed to do a follow up to one of the most looked up, sought after yet bitter episodes of the show. The fact that they were able to make a follow up to that is actually kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So Josh, what's your pick for season 14?
Gentlemen, are you adequately prepared to rock? I will take this. I will say yes. How I spent my summer vacation.
Oh lordy.
So if you think of Homer Palooza as the ultimate musician guest star filled episode of season 7, this one is season 14's equivalent.
Yep.
Yeah.
After
Oh my
Homer
God.
kind of goes on a bit of a drunken rant after, he wouldn't get any free beer and he didn't have money for beer, so he gives blood, he does a licking toes and a bunch of other things. He ends up in a taxi cab that's on this TV show where he kind of rants about how it feels like, he hasn't really accomplished much with his life, your typical midlife crisis stuff. The next day, the family decides that they decided to use their vacation fund to do something nice for Homer, and that is send him to the Rolling Stones rock and roll fantasy camp with a bunch of other men that are past their prime.
Yeah.
And Springfield citizens. But the use of the guest stars, I mean, it's about what you expect when you think of, a music fantasy camp with, male musicians in their 40s to 60s that adults might know. You've got Mick Jagger and Keith Richards are literally the camp directors. Like, that alone sells itself. Like, if you could have gotten any of the other Rolling Stones, that would have been really cool, but you got the big two, so you're already set. But then they add, on top of that, they add the late Tom Petty, rest in peace, as a songwriting instructor. He's got the acoustic guitar on one side, the electric guitar on the other. You've got Brian Setzer, you got Elvis Costello, you got Lenny Kravitz, who is, I guess, one of the quote-unquote newest people at the time, but they all work off each other really well, and it's like Homer gets to be a rock star for a week, except then he has to go back.
To reality.
Yeah, and it looks like, and then they take pity on him and invite him to what he thinks is going to be opening for them at a benefit concert in Springfield, but it's actually just being an honorary roadie. So he decides to try and perform anyway, but they chase after him in this fire-breathing Satan car, but they end up causing a riot afterwards. They apologize, and as a parting gift, he gets to keep the fire-breathing Satan car.
Awesome.
This is like, if anybody ever wanted to, be a musician themselves, or they felt like being somebody famous, even though they know they'll probably have to cope with, being how they feel is average, but it's got some fun musical moments. It's got a lot of nice interaction with the guest stars and the characters. I mean, there's a line about, may we talk about accentuating the masculine area? Did you hear that, people? Apu asked about crowd stuffing. Now, I don't do it. Kenny Loggins does. I trusted you.
And they didn't get the real Kenny Loggins for that one line.
No. And then you have Tom Petty's semi-mindless, semi-generic, but still meaningful and heartfelt rock song. See that drunk girl speeding down the street? She's worried about the state of public schools. She likes to party, she likes to rock. She prays that our schools don't run out of chalk. It's nice to see, Mick and Keith are written as regular people, and they got the storm windows up because winter's coming, and the scene where they're doing the the guitar chord for "Start Me Up" is played when they first get there to the camp, but there's a scene, I think, "I'm So Hot" or something, whatever that Rolling Stone, "Rip This Joint." That's the one, I think, where they're doing a dance with Mick. Everybody's naughty and freeze finish. I enjoy this one.
It's a great episode.
I do wish they would do another sort of really musician filled guest episode, because every so often they kind of do it and it works out really well, and especially now modern Simpsons could really use a boost of who the writers and the producers think the current musical stars of our era are.
Well,
I'd vote for 100 Gex.
But the problem is they actually tried to do that with one of the most revered and beloved pop stars of the modern age, and the episode
ended up being one of the worst episodes of all time.
We'll get to that someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Not now, thankfully.
Yeah. So, I like how it's a strong story even without the guest stars. The guest stars make the episode, but the story they go with is good too, because sometimes there's an amazing guest star, but the episode is complete trash or just forgettable, but the guest star is memorable. It's a memorable story, and it's a memorable guest stars.
I think one bit I always liked is when they're with Elvis Costello, and everyone wants a guitar, and then he's like, hey, bass is pretty cool. And he plays a lick, and everyone's like, get the guitars! As a fellow bassist myself, it's we're really
it's ironic because when we get to a later era Simpsons episode, the bass gets its last laugh.
Oh yeah.
Don't undermine the
But
basis.
that's all I've got to
people.
say about that one.
Yeah.
I like how that's how we're gonna end every
Season
section.
15.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
So my pick for this episode, for this season, is an episode called The Regina Monologues. Just before I get into the episode itself, there's a pretty significant reason why I picked this. So, a man by the name of John Swartzwelder,
Swartzwelder.
Swartzwelder? Welder?
Yes.
Yeah. This is kind of a deep cut for kind of more casual Simpsons fans, I guess, because he's not a household name like James L. Brooks or other people who've worked on the show like Conan O'Brien might be, but this man worked on the show from like the very beginning as a writer and a producer, and this is actually the last episode he's worked on.
Wow.
Like, he came out of semi-retirement for the Simpsons movie, which we'll get to, of course, but like this man was like such a huge part of the show, and he's basically now retired, but if you watched The Simpsons growing up, like you owe this man a lot of your childhood.
Yeah.
And like you've obviously seen his name in the credits, but I think he's a little lower profile than some popular Simpsons people, so he doesn't always get his due. But this is like a significant episode for that reason. It's his last episode. It's his kind of swan song of the show. Other than that, it's a really funny episode. Like it's more or less just kind of a bunch of gags about British culture kind of strung together, but I think it's still pretty funny for that reason.
Yeah.
Like they actually got not the current now, but like the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Tony Blair, was actually on the show as himself.
He
like,
was?
while he was Prime Minister.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which is absolutely wild.
I thought they just got like a character actor to impersonate him. I didn't know they got the real
No, see,
Tony.
when The Simpsons wants to, they can actually get current sitting world leaders to voice themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
When they want to. It's very, very infrequently.
Fortunately, they couldn't get Her Majesty the Queen.
No, that's a bit too much of an act for network television,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
but hey, you settle with Surrey and McKellen and J.K. Rowling, and
Apparently,
I'm pretty happy with that.
We don't talk much about that last one, though.
Apparently, in British culture, the Queen actually rarely addresses the public unless it's really, really warranted. Because they're
Or it's the annual Christmas message.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I only know that because it's on CBC every year.
Well, apparently, the last time the Queen addressed the nation was due to the lockdowns for COVID-19, because like it warranted that.
Well, yeah,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's obviously a very funny kind of plot. The sort of main conundrum of this episode comes with Homer accidentally getting in a accident with the Queen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an episode that I also find highly rewatchable. I remember enjoying it a lot as a kid because of some of the guest stars involved.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like it's a highly enjoyable Simpsons vacation kind of episode.
Yeah.
And I think this didn't even really occur to me till right now, but because it's Swartzwelder's final episode, there's kind of some moments in there that are sort of an homage to earlier points in the show. Like the episode kind of begins with Bart running this like museum about himself, the Museum of Modern Bart. So there's some good kind of like The Simpsons by this point, 15 seasons in. It's very much a lived-in universe. It's very much like at the forefront of the public consciousness, and it's, I don't know, it's just like a very good kind of self-contained Simpsons episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's my 2 pence.
We had to have a travel episode in this list for sure.
Yeah, no, the travel, I'd be remiss if, like, the travel episodes actually get really interesting, in particularly the teen seasons of the show, like post-season 10. They did a couple good ones with Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, Bart versus Australia, but, you know, in the teen seasons, they just crank up the destination list of where they go.
A generation earlier, or like a decade earlier, kind of in Simpsons time, the Bart versus Australia episode was a huge deal. I listened to this podcast by these two Australian guys who review of The Simpsons,
Oh,
and they were talking about like what a big deal it was.
I've listened to that same podcast.
Four finger
they talk
discount,
about-
right?
Yeah.
Four-figure discount. Yeah, they
Yeah.
talk about like what a big deal it was for them in their childhoods to have The Simpsons go there. So I think that almost became part of it as The Simpsons got more kind of globalized. They did lots of stuff that kind of represented different places.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I liked it. There's an episode in, I think, season 12 or 13 where the Simpsons go to Toronto, and I remember watching that. And
I remember that was a big deal at the time.
one of the things I actually liked about it was the Simpsons creators, being filmmaking buffs and filmmakers themselves, they acknowledged just how much of a film presence is in Toronto, because the whole reason the Simpsons go
If
there...
they only knew
Well,
what it
no,
would become.
the whole reason the Simpsons go to Toronto is because Bart is dating, or was dating, Rainier Wolfcastle's daughter, and Rainier Wolfcastle flies to Toronto to shoot a
But
really...
they don't go to Downton Abbey in this one, because Downton Abbey didn't exist yet.
Oh, that's true. But yeah, so they go to a studio lot somewhere in Toronto. I think it was like in the studio district where Lyle and I live. So, but that's cool. But yeah, I also like the CN Tower reference. That was really cool. But yeah, no, that was a nice little moment to see like my hometown be on The Simpsons. So yeah,
Yeah, that was a huge, similar to those guys' reactions. Like,
yeah.
I remember among me and my group of friends, like The Simpsons going to Toronto was a huge deal. It was an event episode of television.
Yeah. Okay. So is that are we good to move on or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So season 15, Lyle's pick.
Oh boy. Alright, my next pick. This was kind of like a last minute change. But I decided to pick Simple Simpson. The episode where Homer becomes a pie-throwing maniac. I mean, superhero.
And this episode was directly influenced and inspired by Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Alternate title, Pie Man Begins.
That's a good title too.
Or
I don't have a ton of things to say about this episode, but I remember when I was a kid, like I didn't get to watch this episode at first. All I saw was like Homer Simpson dressed as a superhero and Bart's his sidekick is like, clean out the leaves in the drain pipes, and it's like, okay.
yeah.
That's all I got to see. And it's like, what was the context of any of that? Why are they superheroes? I want to know more, damn it. And then I finally got to watch the episode, and it's pretty freaking fun, actually. And Evan and I have been playing with our friend Cody here. We've been playing so much Simpsons Seen It, and one of our favorite buzz cards is like, you became the superhero Pie Man. Move back 2 spaces when you realize you've wasted several perfectly good, perfectly edible pies.
Oh yeah, because his whole shtick is actually really quite entertaining. When people are mean to other people, he throws a pie to the face to the jerk off of the altercation, and it's just an embarrassing way to humiliate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Mr. Burns has to spoil the fun and have him almost prank the Dalai Lama.
Yeah. Like Mr. Burns, that really would be how Mr. Burns would take advantage of a situation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of all I have to say, actually. That was really short.
I like the end where it hints that there could be like a possible further exploration of it when Bart becomes Cupcake Kid.
Oh,
It's
God.
like they could just do a whole bunch of Weston Burton Batman send-ups in the future.
The PCU, the Pie Man Cinematic Universe.
That needs to be a thing, yes.
In that
Maybe it
that
is.
a whole bunch of opportunities.
Yeah.
Maybe
In
it
that-
is. I don't know.
in that Simpsons comics universe, they actually used to play up the angle of comic book parodies like a lot. There was a character who's called Bartman.
I loved Bartman, and
Yeah.
up until like very late in the show, like I don't know if it was this era or in the Bronze Age, as I like to call it. They actually then finally went into Bartman in the show, but he had been in the comics for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty fun superhero romp. I've always liked that episode a lot.
Yeah, it's nice. Alright, moving on.
Yeah. So my pick for season 15 is iDobot. The actual title of the episode is called I Annoyed Grunt Bot. And every time you see the word annoyed grunt, it means dough in a script for the Simpsons episode. But so the premise is Bart is mad at Homer because Homer completely screws the pooch when Bart asks him to build a bike. And so to make it up to Bart, Homer decides to, air quotes, build a robot. And by build a robot, he basically gets a mechanical shell and acts like a robot. So they go to this real thing called Robot Rumble. Well, I don't know if Robot Rumble is a real intellectual property, but the concept of fathers...
It's a parody of BattleBots, I believe.
Yeah, because the concept of sending homemade robots...
I liked it, though.
The concept of sending homemade robots to go destroy each other was actually a pretty cool idea, and it's a real thing. But, so Homer clobbers all these robots, but, at the end...
very outdated name, though.
They were capitalizing on the biggest...
No, not the episode title. Whatever Homer decides to name the robot is pretty outdated.
Oh, God, yeah. Chief Knocko Homer. Well, Bart picked the name.
You said it, not me.
Chief Knocko Homer. Well, they put, like, a really insensitive, Native American crest on the
Kind
bot.
of the thing with, like, mid-aughts Simpsons episodes. Sometimes they kind of seem a little tacky, I guess, just because, like, to poke fun at it, but...
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but there is an episode where Lisa uses cultural appropriation with the Native Americans in the most inappropriate way possible. That's another really bad episode.
Yeah, just to get a good grade on a report or something.
Yeah, no, she pulls an Elizabeth Warren, to basically get a good grade. So anyways...
Man, speaking of Lisa in this episode, like,
Oh,
that first subplot is
we'd be
actually kind of
remiss.
dark, but it also reveals some interesting, like, lore about the series, is that there are actually two Snowball 2s. The original Snowball 2 from, like, 1989 to 2004, and then we have Snowball 2 Mark II, who technically is probably almost as old as the original now by this point.
That's really a cheat, isn't it? I guess you're right, Principal Tamzarian. No, I'll just be moving along, Lisa. Snowball 2.
That's one of the rare instances where I actually like the beat.
They don't get to make fun of the principal and the pauper like that.
No,
yeah, it was a good.
I love how you gotta give the Simpsons writers credit. They knew Principal and the Pauper was bad, so they poked fun at it.
Yeah.
I like when writers can kind of acknowledge that they went too far, or they either failed or went too far.
Sometimes they acknowledge it. Other times they double down on certain decisions, as you'll see in much more recent episodes.
Well, I mean, even outside the Simpsons, I paid to see Frozen 2 a year ago, and they actually did a jab at Let It Go because they understood how annoying the song became for every parent on the planet.
That makes sense because they weren't expecting it to become an international phenomenon of a song like that was. This is a little different.
So going back to the B plot, at the time I first saw this episode, I was on the second cat in my entire family upbringing life. So my cat Cleo in 2004 got old, got sick, and passed away. So that was very sad. I saw that this episode I discovered this episode about a year and a half after that. So it didn't traumatize me as much. But I mean, the fact that it deals with deaths of multiple pets is actually, the way they deal with it is actually hilarious. I don't mean to sound like a bastard, but yeah. So what happens is Snowball 2 gets very tragically run over, and then they go adopt another cat named Snowball 3. Snowball 3 drowns in the fish tank, which I actually can't stop laughing at. I'm so sorry to sound like an ass, and then they adopt a cute little kitten, and Lisa names it Coltrane after the musician. She plays the kitten a song written by the musician Coltrane, and then the Coltrane kitten gets scared, runs to the windowsill, and falls to his untimely death. And then, through sheer luck, she gets another cat that looks identical to Snowball 2, but this cat doesn't die instantly. So she thinks because the cat didn't die at the hands of Gil, being Gil, she thinks, oh, you're a good luck kitty. And just for the record, I still really enjoy this episode. And at the time, as of the time I rewatched it, I have had three. I've had three cats in my family pass away. One of them, two of them got old and sick. The other one actually died fairly young, and we think he was run over by a car. But that was a very sad day. But anyways, so the B plot is surprisingly very good. The A plot where Homer and Bart go clobbering robots is a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
As someone who's not a fan of cats, I guess you could say I like the B plot more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is surprising. I don't know. I find it more interesting, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that the cat's out of the bag, shall we move
Nope.
along?
Pun intended, huh?
That was pretty intentional.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, what's your pick?
Well, it was going to be, ironically, the Christmas episode that airs right after this one, but of course, me being the Jewish guy, I figure we might as well go with one of the very Jewish-themed episodes, and one that focuses again on Krusty. Today, I am a clown.
Now, Josh, but before would you say that this is an unofficial sequel to Like Father, Like Clown?
In a way, yes, because Rabbi Krustovsky is Krustovsky, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in here as well, so we got Jackie Mason back. But it's an interesting sort of look at, Jewish culture and how Jewish people sort of use different aspects of it and incorporate into their lives. But it actually starts off with kind of a nod to, in a sense, 2001 Greyhounds, because if you remember that episode, Santa's little helper got another greyhound pregnant, and it looks like, okay, Homer's going to go get him neutered. Of course, Homer being Homer, he doesn't, after, giving Santa's little helper one last night on the town. It turns out he also impregnated Dr. Hibbert's dog, and as a result, they have to get all the puppies adopted, one of which Krusty takes.
Yeah.
So after walking down his old neighborhood,
Yeah.
fame because, in the words of the curator, because he doesn't have a bar mitzvah. So he realizes that he needs to get a bar mitzvah. He needs a bar mitzvah in order to, get that star.
Yeah.
So as a result, while he's preparing for this bar mitzvah, which he ends up broadcasting on Fox as like a live event with the help of Mr. T, who actually has a really funny sequence where he takes off his headpiece, puts on a different one, and sort of pulls his hair down to make some little long sideburns, and he takes out the tour and he's like, "Let's scroll."
They got the real Mr. T. They got the real Mr. T to guest star in this.
Yes, it's interesting because you get more personality from this Mr. T voice role than probably all of the A-Team.
Yeah.
So while Krusty's preparing for the bar mitzvah, Homer essentially takes his place on his show. It gets popular up until the point where Lisa suggests Homer actually use his platform to talk about serious issues, and there is Homer's first and last mistake: listening to Lisa.
Oh yeah.
So it goes downhill pretty quick. But then once Krusty does his wet and wild bar mitzvah, warning: first two rows may get converted. He decides to take his father's advice because he realizes the reason why he never had a bar mitzvah was because he made a joke out of everything, and he realizes he needs to do a serious bar mitzvah. So he then does a second bar mitzvah in a small temple where he reads his section of the Talmud perfectly, and he's now officially a man in the eyes of God.
Yeah. Now, just for the record...
Although my bar mitzvah was nothing like any of this. Well, it was more like the second one, not like the first one, with Mr. T spinning on a Hanukkah or a menorah.
Yeah. Just for the record, this episode actually meant a lot to me the first time I saw it, because the year I watched it, I actually had gone to... In the year 2005, I went to 3 bar mitzvahs for 3 of my friends, and Josh, yours was actually one of them. Fun fact.
Well, as a disclaimer for people that don't know, I didn't have what a lot of people get to have, which is you have your ceremony where you can invite all your friends there, and then there's a thing afterwards. Mine was the second, Krusty's second bar mitzvah, and then afterwards I had a party at this place, Dave & Buster's, where I invited a large chunk of my school chums.
Yeah, no, that was the first time I ever went to Dave & Buster's. So kudos to you for introducing me to what is essentially a casino for kids and an arcade for adults.
Until mobile phones took over, yes.
Yeah. I actually went to Dave and Buster's for a birthday party back in January of this year, pre-corona lockdown.
Ooh.
So
Does it still look like it did 10 years ago?
no, the place is, to be honest, the place is kind of a dump. Everyone litters. It's not very clean. A lot of the games don't work. But yeah, but yeah,
Sounds
so
about right for an
but
arcade
yeah,
classics prime.
I know what you mean. When I say I went to two bar mitzvahs, yours being one of them, I went to your bar mitzvah after party. Realistically, I only went to one ceremony, and that was my friend Brandon's ceremony.
And I know this one because I was there too.
Yeah, we were both there. We also went
Which was
to.
kind of funny seeing, as an aside, it's funny seeing a bunch of people that are not Jewish that you know at like a synagogue when you're positive that's the only time you will ever see them there.
Well, I mean, like just for the record, audience, I'm half Jewish because of my father's side, and I've been to several Jewish weddings and even some Jewish funerals, very sadly. But no, the bar mitzvahs were very fun back in the day. The ceremony itself is very interesting, and then I remember our friend Daniel had his bar mitzvah.
That was another one.
You were kind of fun. Yeah, you were there too. So basically, but his ceremony.
Shout out to the wave pool.
His ceremony was in Jamaica, and then he had his party at the wave pool. That was a lot of fun.
And this episode is also, it starts with a nice nod to the episode guides, because Lisa literally reads from the first episode guide to point out that, like, didn't Dad neuter him in, like, episode in season 7 or something?
I remember that.
Yeah, no, that's
like,
a cool one.
That was, I think, not the last time they would reference the episode guides, but as someone that, I mean, is Jewish, but I found I'm more culturally Jewish or even gasp agnostic or even atheist at this point. With how this year's been, the last couple years, I don't really focus much on any sort of, I don't really think anything does exist to get a bit, metaphysical out there. But this episode was really nice to see Krusty get more in touch with his Jewish faith and actually sort of realize that, he can incorporate his culture and his beliefs into the show in a tasteful way.
Yeah. So he's kind of like, the Adam Sandler of The Simpsons, even less funny than.
Does that mean we get a Hanukkah song part 6?
I mean, I guess so. You think that they would have done that by now with Krusty?
He's never been in the show. Not once in his 20 to 30 years of relevance.
They've been on for 30 years. They've gotten guest stars from everyone, from B-list,
especially SNL,
from C-list actors to world leaders, but they can't get Adam Sandler.
Well, here's a question though I have as a bit of like character lore. In this episode, it's revealed that his full name is Herschel Pinchas Yerachim Krastovsky. Wasn't it Herschel Schmoiko Krastovsky? I guess they decided that's not canon.
That's a little bit of, ditched continuity that they're never going to bring up again.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
The fact that they brought up the episode guides shows that they just don't give a shit about continuity.
That's kind of obvious after some later episodes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the funny thing to me about continuity within the Simpsons world is like they can't maintain that much continuity. But
it only is canon if it suits the plot.
Well, yeah. What I was gonna say is I think that episode guide thing is a little kind of more shout out for the fans, because hardcore fans of the Simpsons will definitely keep track of like, hey, didn't this happen in this episode? But it's just their kind of tongue-in-cheek way of saying, like, yeah, but that doesn't matter for this story.
One of my episodes coming up is going to be highly talked about in that regard. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
And that's a wrap on season 15.
Ooh.
We're halfway there, I hope.
Mm-hmm. All right, Michael, take it away.
So my pick for season 16 is an episode called Prankster Rap. This is an episode where Bart sort of sneaks out of his bedroom to attend this concert that he wasn't supposed to attend, and he actually ends up kind of being the focus of the concert. He gets up on stage in a sort of 8 Mile inspired rap battle.
Took him long enough.
But it causes some conflict within the Simpsons family, because he basically has to fake his own kidnapping to have an alibi for not coming home. I like this episode because I am a fan of when the Simpsons do a kind of like a mystery episode that goes all the way back to season 1, when Krusty gets busted. Like when the pieces are in place for like a really fun like kind of mystery episode of The Simpsons. I think they pull it off really well. This one incorporates a plot where Chief Wiggum, who's always just been the bumbling cop, is also trying to kind of certify himself as like a serious cop, and he's gunning for the police commissioner role throughout his kind of role in this investigation. And yeah, it's funny, and it has a really random cameo from 50, not random within the context of the episode, but it has a cameo from 50 Cent that's just like funny and weird, where he thinks that complimenting Bart counts as community service. So that's a funny little self-deprecating joke.
Oh, for sure.
Like, yo, B, I heard you throw down on stage. Want to join my world tour? Sorry, Fiddy, I have school tomorrow. You're right. The more you know, the further you go. And that's one to grow on. Does that count as community service? No. All right, take me to the park. We'll pick up some dog food. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I feel like around this time, especially, because this is maybe kind of around the time his movie came out, and he definitely had a few albums.
I remember that was kind of a thing, that movie.
Yeah, well, to me, like early to mid 2000s 50 Cent, there's this whole mythos of the fact that he was like, he obviously had like a criminal past and lots of troubles, and he'd been shot numerous times and stuff, and then at the same time he was just this like ridiculously wealthy media superstar. So it was just kind of interesting to see him in this episode too.
The Get Rich or Die Trying movie came out in November of 2005. This episode ended in February of 2005. So relatively same time frame.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty, like I said, I'm just a fan of when The Simpsons does that structure of an episode, like sort of the audience knows the audience already knows, they've had the clues presented to them, but when the characters are trying to solve the mystery and we're kind of one step ahead of them, it's fun to watch. Yeah, so that's basically all I have to say about that episode.
Lyle, I guess you're next for season 16?
Well, I suppose so, in the order that we are going. It's hence far. Hence far is not a phrase. Number 16. So much like my season 11 pick, I'm not picking this one so much that it's because it's funny. It's more like, oh, look, another milestone. And that is, there's something about marrying. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something about marrying, which is an episode that opens the floodgates that Patty is a lesbian. She is out of the closet. I mean, they kind of hinted it in, like, one episode. I forget the name of it. It's the one where, like, there's, like, a burlesque house, and there's a lot of, like...
Bart After Dark.
Bart After Dark, where they take a lot of candid photos of people who come and go, and Patty goes by herself, so it's like, oh.
Wow.
I remember that. That was good foreshadowing. Yeah. Stuff probably not too many people thought about. Yeah, so there's no tourism going on in Springfield, so the town gets an idea. After so many bad ideas come about, I like my favorite one is when Barney shouts, like, "How can we improve our town's tourism?" And Barney's just like, "Large rats." I don't know why he said that. It just caught me off guard when I revisited the episode. But anyways, Lisa has the idea to say, let's give gay marriage, let's make gay marriage legal, or let's promote it as like a town that supports gay marriage. And they're all like, alright. So they make like this really silly like commercial. It's really on the nose, but hey, it gets the tourism. But oh no, Reverend Lovejoy doesn't love that idea, so he shuts down his church. And this gives Homer the exploitative idea. It's like, hey, I'll be a minister just so I can have like all this money come in when all these gay couples come in to get married.
And he literally gets his qualifications to be a minister online.
He prints it off.
So I guess
an ordained life minister.
So you could say
that's actually pretty progressive for that time.
So I guess you could say Reverend Lovejoy loves joy, but not that kind of joy, huh?
That guy sucks. I hate Reverend Lovejoy.
He's kind of
stupid wife.
He's supposed to be like, this ultra conservative religious stick in the mud. That's his character. He's not supposed to be.
The thing that pisses me off is like Marge even comes up to him and explains in detail. Like there's no real record of the book. Like certain books don't actually outright condemn homosexuality, so you doing this makes no sense. And he's just ringing the fucking bell of the church, and ignoring her.
Well, I mean,
it's like,
the Bible, like many other holy books, is up for interpretation depending on what.
Anyone can like take a piece and say, "Hey, this
you ever
validates
sat down
my
and read
opinion."
this thing? Technically, we're not allowed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like
that was Patty finds herself engaged to a golfer, I guess.
Yeah.
And yes. So the episode, Marge is surprisingly not okay with any of this. She's very uncomfortable with the idea of her sister being gay and her getting married.
Yeah, she's a huge hypocrite because she spends the first half of the episode on the train of like, yes, let's legalize it for the gays, and then the second...
It's like a reverse Itchy and Scratchy and Marge.
Yeah, no, this is worse than that because I feel like, she's a huge hypocrite.
That's why I said reverse.
Yeah, no.
She's totally for something until it actually affects her, but then you actually find out that there's closet bigotry in everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it turns out like, she's deeply homophobic when it's revealed that her own sister is gay. And the line that actually made me really angry at her as a character was when she's like, yeah, I think gay is okay, just like how we can we eat cake for breakfast or change our name to Glooble Glop. I'm like, I want to punch you in the face right now, character. Seriously. Yeah.
We got some we're getting angry
at
some of the characters in this episode.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Patty does not end up marrying the golfer because it turns out that her fiance is a cross-dresser who only wanted to...
See, that actually does have some interesting implications as a twist because it also leads me to think of something that The Simpsons I would have thought would have tackled yet. They should really have like more emphasis on LGBTQ 2S+ type of storylines, or at least something where there is a character that is transgender. Because part of me wants to see, like with most modern media, how a legacy show handles that.
Yeah, I'm not sure they tackled that yet. Yeah. But yeah, this one doesn't do it in the greatest way. The character is rather duplicitous. And it's like, as soon as it's revealed that she is a he, Patty just dumps his ass on the ground and just like, I like girls.
Well, because she did that because if that would have been a disingenuous marriage and she would have been betraying her sexuality if she just married that guy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. By the end of the day, Patty has accepted herself and Marge accepts Patty. And in the end, that's all that really matters. And then Homer never does another wedding again. Why not?
Well, I mean, like, his business...
I fucking love that joke where Bart's just, then Lisa's just like, well, there goes Dad's ministry career. Why? It just goes to show, like, why is it that sometimes Homer gets a job and immediately just goes back to the plant the next day?
Well, I mean, I thought there was...
The fucking reset button is so funny.
I can't remember if I talked about this in the last episode, but there's a sad reality that, Marge will get a job or a passion and she'll be done with it by the end of the episode. I thought it was kind of sexist, but I'm like, oh, wait, because Homer will get jobs and hobbies outside the plan, and then he'll never follow up on them again.
Yeah, you gotta have the status quo.
Yeah.
The status quo.
Yeah.
Stick to the stuff you know. There's another rabbit hole to go down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
Okay.
Oh,
I guess that's the end of that.
So,
moving on.
My pick for season 16, I mentioned Canada in... when we were talking about, when Michael talked about the Regina monologues. Canada is a character in this episode. What happens, and it's probably one of the most funny but bonkers premises for a Simpsons episode. Basically, Mr. Burns cancels the prescription drug payment program as an employee benefit at the plant. So, in order to get the prescription drugs that everyone in the Simpsons family is apparently extremely dependent on for the sake of their sanity and their health, Grandpa proposes smuggling prescription drugs from the land of free healthcare, Canada. Although, I'm not so quite sure they got the math out right because, I mean, the pharmacists do have a profit to make in this country, but on the contrary... as Bernie Sanders showed, medicine in Canada is astronomically cheaper compared to the medicine monopoly human rights violation that is the healthcare system of the United States. So
what an odd reason to go to Winnipeg.
Yeah, no, they literally do it's like drug smuggling. They literally smuggle prescription drugs in and out of Canada. The scene where they get busted is probably one of the funniest like travel moments in history.
It's a little racy though.
It's incredibly racy.
It's dated terribly. It's
Yeah.
also aged badly.
I can't let that slip.
Yeah, I mean, like The Simpsons. In the first 5 years after 9/11, The Simpsons did not handle Islamophobic jokes well at all.
Oh, and you'll see even in season 17 or 18, they still haven't learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
try season 20.
Yeah.
Touche.
So, anyways, they. It turns out that Mr. Burns comes to save the day because apparently Smithers needs prescription drugs too. So
what, a hypocrite is revealed to be a hypocrite?
Yeah, there's that's kind of a theme of this season because Lyle talked about how Marge was a hypocrite and then Mr. Burns is a big hypocrite. So basically, the whole reality is like, you know, it's a bonkers episode. It's revealed that Mr. Burns built his own version of the Spruce Goose, which was a Howard Hughes invention that never left the ground.
I said, get in.
Oh, you're thinking of the legal gambling episode.
That was an homage to Springfield.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that episode too, but in this episode, Burns' creation is called the Plywood Pelican, and it actually flies. It's really funny.
Yeah, because it's a cartoon.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love the references to Canada, and actually, I lied. My favorite joke on the episode is when they get the translator when they're in custody. It's like, your car has been impounded and your possessions are all in our custody. And then they have, I can't speak French very well, but the French translator repeats exactly what the Canadian guy says, and it says, you may leave Canada but never return. I am a big fat French loser. A big ball. Hey! Because, you know, I love how they poke fun at the fact that, you know, our English-speaking side...
The Anglos and the Francophones just can't get along.
Yeah, the Anglos and the Francophones in this country have a history. See our Canadian cinema episode where I talk about Bon Cop, Bad Cop for that.
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah. So that's... No, the Canadian reference just makes this episode my ideal pick for Season 16.
As a brief aside to combine those two concepts, if they ever decide to make some episode where like Chief Wiggum has to work with like a French-speaking cop from like somewhere else to solve a murder.
Yeah. No, what would happen, how they would do that is they would probably team him up with a Hispanic because the unofficial if the second language of Canada after English is French, then the unofficial second language of the United States after English is Spanish. So they'd probably team him up with and it would be cool if they teamed him up with a Latino cop, you know, to, you know, solve a crime on the.
Like Bumblebee Man.
Yeah, no, Bumblebee Man joins the force.
Bumblebee Man, but he actually has like a proper voice.
Yeah, like
yeah.
No, that would be cool. Again, Simpsons writers, if you're listening, we want royalties if this episode becomes a thing. So, Josh, what did you pick for season 16?
Possibly until later, what should have been the series finale episode, the best future episode of the show, Future Drama.
I'd have to disagree with you there. I still think Lisa's Wedding is the best one.
I think Lisa's Wedding is still really good. There are parts of it that I don't enjoy as much, though. I feel like this is a solid episode all the way through.
Yeah.
Whereas Lisa's Wedding kind of stumbles at points. We essentially join Bart and Lisa as they roll down a hill and end up in Professor Frink's basement, where he shows them what their lives will look like in 8 years' time, where they're both about to graduate high school, and Bart is going out with this girl named Jenda, who loves to skateboard, and is also voiced by Leslie Knope, a.k.a. Amy Poehler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
And so essentially, it's the future, so, you know, there's flying cars, everybody's getting ready for the prom, and so you get to see what some longtime kid characters look like, aged up a bit. Lisa's looking forward to going to Yale, as is the running theme with her educational goals, on a scholarship Mr. Burns funds, but after saving Mr. Burns' life, he then gives that scholarship to Bart. And of course, he's trying to propose to Jenda, but she doesn't really want to marry him because his idea of post-marriage life is just bumming around in an RV or a trailer or whatever, and not really applying himself. So Bart thinks that if he takes the scholarship, that will, he'll be able to get back together with Jenda. But of course, he realizes that by doing so, because he sees that Milhouse and Lisa end up together, and not wanting her to settle for Milhouse, he gives up the scholarship so that Lisa can, have her future with Yale, and he, I guess, deals with being single perfectly fine. And then there's a random cameo where future Homer and future Bart go somewhere with Bender for some reason. Because it's, get it? Futurama.
Yeah.
That was totally easy.
That's the closest thing they'll ever get to a Simpsons Futurama crossover.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Frank says that Marge and Homer will get back together, as they always do. Once again, the writer's saying that it doesn't matter what these plots do, because it'll always go back to the status quo, as we've said.
Yeah.
But
the Marge and Homer marriage shit gets a little annoying after a while.
It really does.
I completely forgot to mention that season 14...
Well, how about we'll talk about the negative qualities near the end. But
the weird thing about this episode is, for some reason, Milhouse is just unnaturally ripped.
I love the part where he chases...
I don't know if it's a steroids thing or he really buffed himself up because of all the rejection.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the bit where he chases Bart and Lisa, and he gets caught in between two trees, and Lenny and Carl are just there for no reason. It's like, Lenny, Carl, help me out!
Lenny, Carl, can you pull me out? Sorry, we're ghosts now. Our spirits live in those two trees. Maybe we're alive and we just feel like jerking you around. Or maybe we're one of each.
That's Lenny and Carl for you.
Just this episode also features one of my favorite songs to trip out to, IGY by Donald Fagen, and it plays during the Bender cameo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a good song.
I like when they danced to Take on Me and True in the prom. It's like, once again, 80s songs are still relevant.
Yeah.
This is before this decade, this past one, where they were mining 80s nostalgia like nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pretty much. So I guess The Simpsons predicted the big 80s nostalgia rush.
They also predicted Ready Player One.
They look like RoboCop, though. They look like that sort of... Or like RoboCop / Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
But,
no, future...
if you're looking for a fun future episode, and you like Lisa's wedding, and kind of Bart to the Future from season 11, then you'll definitely enjoy Futurama.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a solid one.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're on to season 17. Oh boy. So Michael, you're up.
Cool. So this is an episode called The Girl Who Slept Too Little. I'm sure I saw it back in the day, but I just kind of revisited it recently for the sake of this podcast. But basically the plot revolves around the Simpsons family are now living next door to a cemetery. Initially, they're living next to a stamp factory, but they find that too annoying. So the Simpsons does the kind of classic bait and switch thing, makes it a lot worse, and they end up living next to a cemetery instead.
We have to move all the bodies into the grave.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an episode I like. So as a result of them living right next to the cemetery, Lisa's window points out onto the graveyard, and she can't sleep. She's having all kinds of nightmares about it, or not sleeping at all, rather.
Yeah.
This is a really nice kind of episode, like coming of age kind of story. I feel like it's actually kind of a pretty well done story about like childhood.
Yeah.
Because like a graveyard in itself is a pretty like irrational fear. Like obviously there's like kind of, emotions attached to bodies being buried right there, but it's like it's like a cemetery itself is not that scary a place. It's been it's sensationalized a bit by horror movies and stuff, and there's some good horror movie parody stuff going on here for sure.
It's eerie.
it's eerie. Eerie's a better tone. But
Yeah.
I think Lisa literally says in this episode, "I'm too smart to be scared."
Yeah.
And these not mythological, but these kind of literary kind of characters that are based on where the wild things are. Are kind of through her sort of visions or hallucinations or whatever you want to tell her. Like, they teach her the lesson of, like, it's okay to be scared. Like, you're a kid. It's okay to be scared.
Yeah.
And everyone is scared of stuff. It doesn't matter if it's rational or not.
Yeah.
So I thought that was actually, like, a pretty good kind of lesson to this episode. Like, you might not get over your fear. You might never get over your fear, like, in your lifetime. But, like, there's a way to kind of confront it or manage it in a healthier way.
Yeah.
So I was kind of touched by this episode because Lisa is so, we've touched on this already today, but she's like so rational. She's always been the brains of the family, and just kind of presenting her with this challenge to think, more, but almost less rationally, kind of more feel with her heart a little bit more. Is I don't know. It held up well for me as a pretty nice Lisa episode.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasant episode for sure. I like revisiting it.
Yeah.
The Where the Wild Things Are fan in me loves the end bits where she ends up in the land of wild beasts.
Yeah.
Between this and the actual movie that came a few years after this episode, it was a really nice time to be a Maurice Sendak fan in the mid-late 2000s.
Yeah.
Even just the animation in that episode is pretty cool. The way they sort of aped the Where the Wild Things Are style was really cool, and having that incorporated in this episode was definitely a plus.
Yeah.
Think we'll ever see Gravedigger Billy again?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Good. Groundskeeper Willie. No, I'm his cousin, Gravedigger Billy.
Well, and Dr. Nick with all his, I'm Dr. Octopus.
Yeah. By the way,
we're not your doctor. You're not our doctor anymore.
Better than being Dr. Rocks, though.
Right before I turned on the mic to record this, and as of this recording, we discovered that Alfred Molina is coming back for Spider-Man 3 to play Dr. Octopus.
Yay.
No, the Spider-Man...
The
The MCU Spider-Man 3, not the remake of Spider-Man 3. So, Tom Holland is going to get a trilogy. Sorry, Andrew Garfield.
But see, is he going to get a quadrilogy? That's the only true test to break the curse.
I hope not.
That is true.
They could go the route of Thor, Love, and Thunder and just pair them up with, I don't know, Falcon and Winter Soldier or something. Because they're pairing Thor up with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But anyways, enough about the MCU. Michael, is that all you have to say about The Girl Who Slept Too Little?
Yep.
Yeah. Alright, decent episode. Okay. You know, I'm looking through this list, and I gotta say, there aren't too many episodes where Marge is the central focus, but one episode I think that really might even be, well, I don't know, Marge versus the Monorail is pretty much like one of my top 5 favorite episodes.
It's a great one.
Yeah, but like the last of the Red Hot Mamas to me is a really, really good Marge episode, where she actually like joins a group of ladies and they have fun and it's all nice and good, and then it turns into an Ocean's 8 kind of movie.
Yeah.
Hey now,
did that movie?
You would join a crime gang that was headed by Miss Frizzle. I mean Lily Tomlin.
Miss Frizzle, indeed, yes.
Yo, that was one of the. I can still tell it's Lily Tomlin, but she actually makes an effort to be a character in this episode.
No, she's not just like seatbelts, everyone.
Do you think this episode unintentionally predicted the all-female remake of Oceans of the Oceans
No, I think
movies?
it's just a coincidence.
That was just a joke I made.
Oh,
It reminds
okay.
me of Ocean's 8 a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the B plot of this one, but yeah.
Oh yeah, we actually get Milhouse character development that isn't just he's such a loser.
Lisa wants to learn Italian, and the only person who speaks fluent Italian in Springfield, I guess, is Milhouse.
Yeah.
Complete with a lame backstory where he gets abused.
Idiota!
He gets hit with a tree branch. Of course, Lisa does the same thing, but it's like, you learn Milhouse actually has depth and like a backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he turns into a play.
Yeah, and then
And
Lisa...
that was his downfall.
Josh, I remember you told me about the part of the episode where Lisa discovers him, kind of having, eyes for another lass.
That didn't make sense to me because
It's kind of confusing because it's like Lisa only seems to like Milhouse again when it's convenient for the plot.
Yeah.
It's always Milhouse loves Lisa no matter what, and Lisa just loves the special guest boy of the week.
Well,
I feel so bad for Milhouse because he reminds me of me when I was in high school when I was like obsessed with this girl.
Some very potentially toxic precedents in his character arc over the years.
You know what? What if The Simpsons actually create a parody of, 500 Days of Summer where they show the dark side of unrequited love?
They should have called it 500 Days of Bummer, except they already kind of named an episode like that.
Oh, we'll get to that one later. I hate that episode.
Oh, will we?
Yeah, so anyways,
Fuck.
But basically... the point I was getting at was, Milhouse has eyes for another girl, and then Lisa catches this, and then she rants at him.
In fluent Italian.
Yeah, no,
and she chases him with an olive branch.
I've met
his work here is done. What do you mean his work was done? He didn't do anything. Didn't he?
Yeah. But
I can't help but reference that one.
What's interesting about this episode is it airs right before another Italian themed episode with Sideshow Bob, where you know how in this episode the word idioto is repeated, but in the next episode, the Italian Sideshow Bob's kid keeps repeating the word vendetta, vendetta.
Not preceded by the words Def Jam.
Oh yeah.
What was I gonna say?
Side note, Def Jam Vendetta and Fight for New York.
Yeah.
Look those video games up if you get a chance.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Cool.
Do you ever feel like sometimes the writers, when they write a season, they'll take one random thing out of a hat and they'll use it a couple times throughout a season? I remember there was this one season where twice there was references to Jewish people at Christmas who go to Chinese restaurants and eat there.
Yeah, there was in Today I Am a Clown, I believe that was also.
Yeah, that was mentioned there, and sometimes they'll mention something else, a couple, not back to back like this case, but it'll be offhandedly mentioned, the .com crash or something, or the .com boom. Yeah. I just find that interesting. I wonder if that's intentional or not.
Yeah. But yeah, is that all you have to say about Last of the Red Hot Mamas?
Where Marge is sadly walking around Springfield to Everybody Hurts.
Yay, more REM.
Oh yeah.
It's not a party unless those boys are in town.
Yeah.
I do love the ending where for some reason Mo really likes to jump off planes to his death.
Yeah, and then he lands on a hot air balloon. I can't believe this happened to me twice.
But the first time it's just so casual. He's like falling in the middle of that parachute story, and he's like, "Ladies,
goodbye, cruel world, ladies." Yeah. Poor Mo,
man.
Suicide is not funny, kids.
It's really not.
I don't think you trust in his self-righteous suicide either.
Okay, System of a Down.
I cry when angels deserve to die.
So my. Are you?
I think that's all I got to say.
Okay, so
check it out. It's a good Marge episode.
For season 17, I actually was torn between two episodes. I was torn between one of the most creative episodes of The Simpsons I've seen in the last 15 years, The Seemingly Never-Ending Story, or I was torn between, a funny one from this season, Bart Has Two Mommies. I'm going to talk about Bart Has Two Mommies today. Okay, the plot of this episode is Marge, it's another one of those, the Simpson kids don't like Marge's parenting, so she takes her mothering elsewhere, and instead of Nelson Muntz from a season before, this time it's Rod and Todd Flanders, because I guess the absence of a mother figure in their lives kind of warrants Marge to kind of fill that void of, teaching them confidence, but the A plot is Marge becoming closer with Rod and Todd. But the B plot actually doesn't get going until after the halfway point of the episode. And by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. I think The Simpsons predicted Harambe from 2016 in this episode. So, oh God.
I just die rolled.
Yeah, no, because... Yeah, no, that Harambe thing was bonkers, and this episode is bonkers. I think that's kind of why I like it. So, but the B plot and the A plot intersect beautifully at the end. Basically, Ned Flanders is terrified that Marge is going to get his two boys hurt, so he prevents Marge from ever babysitting them again. After, Rod is doing amazing at rock climbing, but then Flanders has to blow it saying, "Rod, you're gonna fall!" And then as soon as he hears the words, "You're gonna fall,"
Shrek, I'm looking down.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. And then, so the B plot, this is where it's important. Somehow Bart winds up in a cage with Toot Toot, a mother ape who has lost her son. We'll get to who her son is in a second, but she holds Bart captive and basically mothers the hell out of him. And then the best joke in the episode is when Homer tries to free Bart by saying, "Bart, come over here. I'll distract the ape with a peach full of antifreeze."
My dad, when we watched that episode for the first time, he just busted a gut. And he was just like...
Despite all of Bart's rage, he is still just a kid in a cage.
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkins, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like, antifreeze will kill the ape.
Yeah.
Like, because when I was younger, I didn't even know what antifreeze was, so that was my introduction to it.
Yeah.
And then you went back and watched the Grapes of Wrath, and then you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of forgot this episode existed.
Yeah, so the point is, the ape pulls a King Kong. Toot Toot the ape pulls a King Kong and carries Bart to the highest freestanding structure in Springfield. And so, basically, because Rod gets a knack for rock climbing, he has to climb all the way up to the shaft. And Ned Flanders actually encourages him to do it. But along comes Toot Toot's long-lost son, Mr. Teeny, Krusty the Clown's helper monkey. So... they save the day, and that's pretty much it. But I still maintain that...
and Rod Flanders plays a part.
Rod Flanders actually has some good character development for once. So I like...
Todd kind of had that with Dead Putting Society back in Season 2, so I guess Rod was finally overdue for something.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's a bonkers episode, but I love it. Yeah. What's staggering for me is that the flawed writing structure of The Simpsons really starts to show with this episode, but basically the B plot doesn't take off until over halfway through the episode. That I thought was kind of unorthodox, but it still works. Yeah.
And going back to Alone Again, NATURADIDDLY, the very ending is you actually see Maude looking down on Rod from heaven, which I thought is kind of a nice touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that. Are we just gonna play that audio clip?
We should just end this episode.
No, that's if you want to get demonetized.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Thanks, YouTube.
Not if we play it for like less than 5 seconds.
Anyway, so Josh, your pick from season 17.
Well, for a character that gets very little character development in some way, how about a character that's never gotten any character development until now? My Fair Laddie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What starts with one of my favorite sort of in-jokes of this era, Coach Crupton is bombardment.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's literally traumatizing the kids in gym class, so to get back at him, Bart literally freezes a dodgeball to make an ice ball, except it backfires when his aim sucks, and he trashes Willie's shack.
Yeah.
And as a result, Marge feels bad for Willie literally having to be in the pouring rain by himself without even any shelter. So he stays at the Simpson house till he can get back on his feet. And this entire episode is basically a My Fair Lady send-up, but it shows that Willie actually has potential to turn his life around if he wanted to. And it looks like he really puts in, that effort. So Lisa sort of remakes him over for the science fair, and she wins the science fair. But then it turns out that, Willie doesn't really know what to do. Now the lessons are done. He becomes a maitre d' at the Gilded Truffle as to sort of like pass the time, for lack of a better term. But obviously the assholes there really wear on his patience, and he decides to go back to his old life and his old job. And while they do get him a new shack, Lisa puts up this little home sweet home thing in there, and he's like, "Could you excuse me?" It's like, you made that for me? I think I'll need a moment alone. Yeah. I understand. He waits for her to leave and smashes the thing on the floor. I liked it the way it was.
Don't ask why, but I'm oddly reminded of Shrek 2 when I watch, just because, you know, the plot of Shrek 2 is somewhat similar, because Shrek, you know, winds up turning into a handsome prince, but then he ultimately realizes...
he kind of turns into what Homer Simpson crossed with Mike Myers in CGI would probably look like.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say?
The B plot of this is also kind of interesting because it's sort of like a take on, you know, viral advertising in the mid-2000s, where Homer's pants, the company that makes them, stopped making them because they made this terrible Super Bowl ad to the tune of Baby Elephant Walk, where it just keeps going. But like, he paints an ad on his head that gets people interested in the pants, and so that works well. And he ends up like doing the same thing by writing ads on his body for all these other products, and it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of, it's not a huge B plot, but the A plot, like the songs in here are quite nice. You know, the whole adequate thing, and just the idea that Groundskeeper Willie really could be a decent side character in the show if they gave a damn.
Yeah.
I just think they tried it once and they kind of got tired of that and they didn't do it again.
Yeah.
But it reminds you of what could have been.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a nice sort of side joke where Dolph, Kearney, and Jimbo are sort of like watching the bed. It's like, what the hell are they doing in there? Lisa bet Bart she can turn Willie into a proper gentleman. Huh. That's as unlikely as Kearney going around the world in 80 days. 80 days? Ample time to circumnavigate the globe, booger breath. You, sir, have a wager. I shall hold the money. Then Kearney runs off screen, he bikes, and he comes back in a hot air balloon. To Istanbul! Wrong way, dingus!
That's another thing I wanted to say. Like, the bully characters kind of become bit parts in, like, certain episodes, like, in the later part of this era.
And another thing...
I think that's kind of cool.
The fact that Kearney as a kid, I thought that was a throwaway joke for one episode, but no, Kearney's...
But they actually do stick with it for the later episodes.
Kearney's kid is actually a reoccurring, like, joke that keeps coming up.
Kearney's kid kind of somewhat plays a part, something. Now, where are Dolphin Jimbos?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Is that, so is that all?
That's it.
Okay.
Guys, keep moving.
We're on the home stretch, boys.
Come on, guys.
Cool.
Season...
So we're headed into season 18?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, so my episode is an episode called Springfield Up.
Yeah.
Which is a parody of a documentary series called 7 Up, where they actually documented like a select group of children every 7 years periodically. They followed them when they were like 7, and again when they were 14, 21, etc.
Wait a minute, are you telling me that Richard Linklater ripped Boyhood off of that?
Har har.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
It's the documentary version of essentially what Boyhood was doing.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna watch that series now.
This Simpsons episode is a parody of an actual documentary series, and it has a documentarian character in it who I'm not sure if he ever comes back or not, but he was
in an earlier episode. Excuse me while I miss the sky. Declan Desmond.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, he's in an earlier episode. Yeah,
I think I one before that too.
Was he always voiced by Eric Idle?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Anyway, so Declan Desmond, he's a documentarian, and he's kind of documenting Simpson characters throughout the years. Kind of like this episode because it is very light on plot. It is structured like an actual documentary, and it's kind of just like episodic, just kind of like little stories, sort of spiritually kind of similar to 22 short stories about Springfield. You kind of just see like lesser seen or lesser known kind of Simpsons characters just kind of have their moment in the sun. Yeah. It basically careens towards this plot where Homer is kind of making up a better life for himself when they catch up with him as an adult. Yeah. But again, it does kind of have a sweet sort of message about Homer might not have grown up to be everything he wanted to be as a kid. Like, you see like little baby Homer in his formative years talking about wanting to grow up to be a millionaire or like an astronaut or like whatever. And, he does become an astronaut, but not a millionaire. So it's kind of a sweet little episode about, maybe life is not always what you think it's going to be, but you can definitely capitalize on the best parts of it.
Yeah, cry me a river, Homer. You've accomplished so much in your life, and you're only 37, 38, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or 36.
But,
whatever.
Yeah, I think the structure of this episode was very fun to me.
Hey, we also got the origin story of the crazy cat lady, which I thought was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Yeah.
they delved into that.
Yeah, that was a kind of funny.
Talk about characters that have no development getting all the development.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, so it's a fun episode. Eric Idle's character is really good. It seems like a better version of Behind the Laughter. You guys ever remember Behind the Laughter? That really
Kind of. I mean, I guess Behind the Laughter works if you like Behind the Music. This is a bit more of an obscure choice, but the idea certainly hits better.
Yeah, it does. Is that everything, Michael, for Springfield Up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's a latter era episode of The Simpsons where they've done kind of similar stuff before, but I find it to be pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
All right. So, my next pick. Full disclosure, I have never watched a single episode of 24, and yet 24 minutes is like probably the biggest highlight of season 18 for me. And that's how you know you make a good I think Mel Brooks said it best. Is like you can tell when a parody is very good when you don't have to watch the source material to get all the jokes.
Yeah.
And in that show's case, I barely watched any of 24. I never liked it, but this is all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, for the record, at the time this episode 24 was in like its prime, and it while The Simpsons was kind of losing steam, 24 was just ramping up because 24 was like the go-to entertainment for patriotic spy stuff in post 9/11 America.
America.
Yeah. So anyway, when this was on, 24 was the shit. So, and at the time I had seen the first 3.5 seasons of 24. So I call me a fan. Yeah. It was, and it's really well done, like, as a show. But yeah, this parody is really good too.
Yeah, because like I actually feel like palpable tension all throughout the episode, and even though it has like all the cliches of like a typical like crime show from around that time, it's really well it's really well constructed. I especially like it when they do like it's like a split screen and you see like the same action going on in the same frame. And sometimes they intentionally fuck up the continuity.
Yeah.
Oh, that was pretty great. It's
they
funny.
They actually got the talent involved.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland.
They got
pretty great.
They got Kiefer Sutherland as Jack Bauer, and they actually got the actress who played Chloe to be Chloe in the episode.
Yeah, for a bit.
Is that the mom from Weeds? I think that's also the mom from Weeds.
Oh, really?
The main character.
You'll have to look this up.
No, I'm mixing them up.
Yeah. But yeah, in this episode, by the way, just for the record, Kiefer Sutherland guest stars in 2 episodes in this season.
Yeah, he's in another one too.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
In G.I. Joe, where the army invades Springfield just to catch Homer.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm looking up 24 right now, and like on Wikipedia it says starring Kiefer Sutherland and others.
Jesus
What
Christ.
does he think? He's top shit or something?
Yeah. Well, he's literally the guy who carries that whole show.
So what's the character's name?
Chloe.
It's an the way that it actually ties in the 24 universe and the Simpsons universe through a simple prank call to Bauer, and the way it sort of pays off at the end. That's a decent way to sort of tie those sort of 2, I would say vaguely tangentially correlating franchises together.
Yeah.
And like the tension, the whole point of Lisa and the nerds being on like this counterintelligence force for the school, and Bart being like they have to get Bart to try and infiltrate this thing because there's the stink bomb. There's a lot of tension in there.
If a bully catches one of the nerds, it's like they got compromised or something.
Yeah.
By the way, the actress's name who played Chloe is
Marilyn Radcliffe.
Rajskub. Rajskub.
Radcliffe. It's RHASKUB.
Yeah.
RAJSQB.
Yeah.
Interesting. Choosing dude, where's my car?
Oh, wow.
And Little Miss Sunshine. I looked it up.
And Punch Drunk Love.
There was an actually kind of dark moment near the end because one of the darker moments is where Martin, it turns out, was the mold for the bullies the whole time.
Yeah.
Of course, he realizes the error of his ways, and the scene where he wedgies himself.
Yeah.
I'm seeing now, that is an homage to Lieutenant Markinson from A Few Good Men, like the end of when he takes his life.
Yeah.
And I remember, and that was actually a really sort of poignant moment in there.
One complaint I have about the episode is the ending, because the bullies don't even get caught in the end.
Oh, maybe they do off screen. I mean, then again, that nuclear explosion happens in the background, and he's like, "Oh no, it's okay. That was Shelbyville. Yay!"
Yeah.
Now, they parody all elements of the 24 show, but the overall plot of the episode is a parody of season 3, where a biological agent is threatening Los Angeles. Yeah. And also
a biological agent threatening a major metropolitan city. Now, where have you heard that before?
The year 2020, where every major city on Earth is infected by COVID.
I was being facetious.
Oh.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's a word I've not heard of in a long time.
And that
rain of vocabulary.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And that
way to use $10 words, Josh.
That nuclear bomb joke at the end was a parody of the second season, because a nuclear bomb is detonated outside of LA in the second season. Yeah. So
I think I can wrap it up here, but basically 24 for a show I've never watched and never cared to watch. The episode did a really good job of making me invested.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So, in a similar fashion to Lyle, where he has never seen an episode of 24 in his life, I have never played World of Warcraft in my life. I almost played RuneScape, but that crashed my mom's computer back in the day. Yeah, it's not funny. We could have lost a lot of data. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it's funny to think about then. It's not fun. It was not funny then, but it's funny now to think about it. So that being said, Marge Gamer is my go-to episode for season 18, because the plot is Marge is apparently not very tech savvy, so she discovers one of the greatest inventions known to man, Google. So after she gets fluent with Google, she wanders onto an online RPG game called Earthland Realms, which is a parody of World of Warcraft, RuneScape, all that good stuff that was big in the 2000s. So she creates a little avatar, and she wanders around the game, and you see online avatars for the entire cast of the show, except other members of the Simpson family, but we'll get into what they're up to off screen. So basically, Marge discovers that a player called the Shadow Knight is threatening everyone in the game by being like this undefeatable character that has extremely high experience points, and basically she discovers that the Shadow Knight is Bart, and then she moms him to death, and that ruins the game for him. So the plot twist comes when he accidentally kills her and then resurrects her back to life, but at the cost is every other character in the game basically takes advantage of this and slaughters him, Monty Python and the Holy Grail style, where they basically take his arms and they beat him to death with him, and he's like, "Oh, come on!" And because I was actually, at the time this episode aired, I was playing a lot of Halo 2 online, so I actually understood what it's like to, have people in real life be in a game, so that was cool. In a sense, but I didn't even talk about the B-plot. The B-plot is honestly not that good. The B-plot is basically Lisa gets into, Lisa apparently watched Bend It Like Beckham, literally, because she decides to take up soccer, and then Homer becomes the ref at her games. And then at first, Lisa is kind of a dink in this episode because
she's a real soccer player because she flops all the time.
Yeah, no, she literally, and then but
real in quotes.
Somehow they got Ronaldo to guest star in the episode to basically call Lisa out on her bullshit. Which I think if you're gonna have any character guest star, have them call the character out on their shit. That's the best way to do it. It's kind of like with how Stan Lee called Bart's comic Stinky when he guest starred. But then...
Whoa, my spidey sense is tingling. It's that good? Oh, no, I meant stinky.
And then... but yeah, so then... Essentially, Lisa decides to take advantage of nepotism by basically faking injuries so that Homer will give her, like, the opposing teammates penalty points. But then, eventually, he catches on to this, and he actually kicks her out of the game for unsportsmanlike conduct. And then... the whole family, you know, falls in love with soccer by the end, and then Marge is still addicted to the game because she becomes the new Shadow Knight, and she's kicking Moe's head up and down like a soccer ball to kind of tie it in. And then Moe's like, why am I paying $14.95 a month for this? Yeah.
That's funny.
Same reason why people pay $60 a year for Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get, the idea is that Moe is just, you know, a cynical schlub who has nothing better to do. But,
I can relate to that.
But yeah, people will pay, like, annual fees for online gaming.
Well, now you have to, because, like, the PS Plus store,
They made it so you have to pay to be online with people.
To be
Except
online.
if you're on PC, that's a race.
Yeah.
And Xbox is doing... Well,
Or
Xbox
in
kind of
my
started
and
it.
stuff, which is so good.
Yeah.
Not to hijack the conversation too much, but I'm going to need to take a brief intermission.
Okay.
No, it's okay. Your turn's coming up in a little while,
Right.
so...
Yeah,
Talk amongst yourselves.
no, your turn's next for season
Oh.
18.
Alright, it's Evan's turn.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't mind this episode, but I think South Park covered the World of Warcraft craze a lot better.
I will say the Make Love Not Warcraft by South Park was way better.
I think that's probably my favorite South Park episode, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, in the context of The Simpsons this season had a lot of duds, but this was my favorite, personally.
Yeah, now we're getting into the latter half. Oh! We're almost done season 18.
So, but...
So, as soon as Josh finishes up and talks about his episode, we have a certain cinematic behemoth
Yeah.
to bring up. So, guys,
Yeah.
Are we on intermission now?
you like stuff?
Do you like stuff? From this point forward, all of it's going to be edited out of the podcast. So.
But you say that now, but I'm just gonna be too lazy to cut it out.
Oh man.
I'll be like, oops.
Yeah.
We're allowed to talk. We're allowed to shoot the shit on a
Yeah.
podcast. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, in the later parts of this show, certain, like, supporting characters really have their moment to shine.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there's this one part where, I think this is season 21, but, like, there's one part where Homer is, like, stuck in line at the Quickie Mart,
Yeah.
and he has, like, a long conversation with Bumblebee Man, because he's so bored that he finds, like, a English to Spanish translation, or how to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
And he just learns Spanish fluently, and he has a conversation with Bumblebee Man. that was a treat. It's like, Bumblebee Man, dude, what does he do? There's so many characters on The Simpsons, I'm just like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
There must be some kind of way into here. Wait, that's not how that goes.
I miss Herman.
Yeah.
He's not around
I'm
anymore.
not Herman.
Yeah.
He wasn't, like, even the funniest character, but he just kind of, like, brought, like, a sincere edge to the show every time he showed up and crawled out of the
Edge
shadows.
in air quotes.
Yeah.
So, Josh, are you back from intermission?
I am, yes, thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Let's carry on and talk about your episode.
Yeah.
Alright, so speaking of characters that don't get a lot of development, or hadn't yet, wait, I already said that for Willie. But we're doing it again for Gil. This is Kill Gil, volumes 1 and 2.
Can I be honest? I don't like this episode, but we'll let you talk about it. Sorry.
What a great
What
way
I
to
thought was
start
most
an
interesting
episode.
about it was Gil's always been like a side character. I think in Realty Bites he was kind of like it was like a focus when March became a real estate agent, but here essentially Gil gets fired from his job at Costington's because he sells the last Malibu Stacy dream house to Lisa and stands up and like asserts himself like he's not going to take it back from her to sell it to the store's daughter. And then of course he gets fired.
Yeah.
Trying to make like the job like so Marge feels really bad for Gil, you know, being homeless on Christmas Eve. So she invites him to stay the night, but when they come down the stairs on Christmas Day, he moved all his stuff in. And we learn throughout the episode, Marge has a hard time saying no to people because Gil ends up staying for nearly an entire year.
I thought like this could have been
a start to take over the family.
Yeah.
Kind of dark in that way. And then when she finally does actually muster up the courage to toss him out after he like photoshops himself into a Christmas card, like she goes to confront him, but then they tell her that he moved to Scottsdale to be a realtor. And of course, Marge is so mad that he left before she could actually say no to him. They literally fly to Arizona just so Marge can tell him off, and she ends up doing so in front of all his coworkers. And of course, he ends up back where he ends up back where he started. But then they spend another Christmas with him in a home they, I guess, apparently bought in Arizona out of guilt. But you learn a bit about Gil, but then he kind of becomes an ass.
I feel like Gil is a punchline for the state of the average American worker. Because think about this: if he gets fired from a retail job and then the next thing you know he's homeless, that just goes to show that, you know, the vast majority of American people are like one paycheck away from homelessness or poverty. So like it really shows like if you are, your status in like the economic capitalist game is if you're one paycheck away from your life being utterly destroyed, that really shows a lot of problems with the country, you know?
Well, that needs a Jack Lemmon insert.
That's true, yeah, from Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only part of this episode that I like is the Grinch parody, like, grubbly grubbly groo, I use your blood to make my stew. Like, what the fuck? Like, edgelord Dr. Zeus over here. Yeah.
And then, like, he somehow ends up, like, having an actual beef with Homer. And of course, he beats him up in the bar, and it's like, he's actually bleeding green blood. I'm like, what kind of species is he?
I think he's a grumple.
You know.
And he has, like, a grumple family.
Yeah, I think The Simpsons was trying to steal from the inconspicuous chicken fights from Family Guy that could come out of nowhere in any given episode.
Well, it seemed like it looked like it could have started that. At the same time, though, they were wise enough to be like, no, Family Guy has already started to drive that joke into the ground.
Well, I think The Simpsons
ironically, about 10 years later, they too would be part of that farce.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Simpsons was paying homage to Family Guy.
And yes, Elvis Stoico did actually voice himself in the ice pageant they watched at the beginning, Krusty's Christmas on Ice.
Oh, cool. There is I know who Elvis Stoico is because there is a arena in Richmond Hill named after him.
I've been there a few times.
Yeah. But that's cool. Is he Canadian?
Yes.
Oh, that's
the whole thing about, like, that's a common misconception. I have a girlfriend in Vancouver. Made up girlfriend, made up city. Until the Simpsons go there when Marge and Homer are good at curling. But that's a story for another time.
Okay.
Totally.
So,
alright guys, so we finished season 18. I believe there's one thing we should really address before you continue.
Yeah.
And that is the Simpsons movie.
Now, it took South Park 2 years to make a theatrical movie. It took SpongeBob SquarePants 5 years to make a theatrical movie. How long did it take the Rugrats to make their first theatrical movie?
Quick question. When did the Rugrats start?
Gotta be early 90s. I'm not exactly
sure. Point taken. It took
Rugrats aired in 91. The Rugrats movie came out 1998. 7 years.
So it took Rugrats 7 years. How long did it take The Simpsons to make a theatrical movie? 20!
Nearly 18 goddamn years.
18 years from when the first season aired.
And you know something? Time well spent.
Time well spent, yes.
Life well spent.
So who wants to summarize I'll let Michael, being the film buff, summarize the plot of this movie.
Sure. So, basically, the Simpsons movie is a story with a little bit of an environmental bent. It revolves around Homer and his new friend, the star of the summer of 2007, Spider Pig.
Yes.
That was certainly a thing that summer.
Basically, through some sort of, I don't know I describe this is, but there's some quite literal shit. Poisoning Springfield, which basically makes the Simpsons family pariahs. It's been explored a lot on the show, but definitely to an extreme in this movie. And the Simpsons are forced to move to Alaska. You know, it's actually kind of weird summarizing this plot because I feel like it moves through a lot of different
there's a lot of things that happen.
things. But basically, if I were to sum it up like succinctly, it's a story about Springfield versus the Simpsons that basically becomes a story about Springfield embracing the Simpsons and the Simpsons becoming the hero of the city again.
Yeah.
There's also a dome in there. I can't believe I forgot to touch on that. But the Simpsons have basically Springfield has become such a problematic city that they're isolated from the rest of the world.
Yeah,
for a
because
good chunk of the
Homer
movie.
just had to dump his pig silo into the lake that was already in bad
So-
condition.
Not just the pig crap silo, but one that apparently he helped fill.
That's
Yeah.
gotta be one of my favorite jokes. He filled the entire silo in 3 days? Well, I kind of helped.
Oh god. That's one of those that's one of those too much information jokes.
That catches you off
No,
guard.
this is modern. This is like, and this is something I've also noted that this is, I think at a certain point we have the birth of what people have called jerk ass Homer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, Jerkass
Kind of
Homer
a-
actually has a really powerful redemption or an epiphany. Sudden realization of great truth. Hey, by the way,
Speaking of things that haven't aged that well,
oh god, yeah, another cultural stereotype.
Yeah.
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 But I thought the whole epiphany experience was tastefully done.
That
Like,
was a funny bit.
yeah,
to be
it's
honest.
funny, but it's culturally where they're using cultural appropriation. It actually kind of makes sense because Homer has to go back to his roots of who he is, similar how the roots of America literally help him discover his meaning in life. So I think that's kind of okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the trippy visuals and the vocalized Spider Pig song,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the acapella.
Okay, so some fun facts about this movie. The Simpsons writers had been writing and rewriting this show since the year 2000. This movie since the year 2000. It took them ages to agree on a premise for a movie that they liked, and they rewrote the script so much that they literally shredded copies of the
it
script.
shows.
No, they shredded copies of the rewrites after every reading because they wanted to keep it really secretive, and but the web.
Shame Reddit didn't exist back then.
But what's apparently another fun fact is apparently the movie domain for the online domain for the Simpsons movie website was established, I think, about 5 years before the movie actually came out. So the Simpsons creators were itching to do a movie. It just took them a long time to agree on a story that they liked.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
Do you think they were successful at capturing the spirit of the Simpsons in this
Well,
one movie?
Mostly.
As Cody said when we brought him on for our 90s episode where he talked about, movie adaptations of the shows, if you're going to make a movie based off a show, you have to set the stakes higher than the show has ever set them before. I mean, Springfield has been threatened by utter destruction before, but, The Simpsons has been torn up before, but the epic scale of everything that is cranked up to in this movie is really, really high. So you do feel like everything is in imminent peril. So job well done. The jokes are also funnier than they had been, in the previous season, season 18.
I see what Josh means when he says sort of, because it is basically a blend of the best elements of the golden age of the Simpsons and some of the lesser elements of the Silver Age.
Yeah.
Yeah. My whole thing about this movie, the Simpsons movie, is The Simpsons has been around for longer than I have, so I've never not grown up in a world with The Simpsons. Been watching it, for decades now. But like there was this feeling of I remember watching the show as a kid and thinking like, is a Simpsons movie ever gonna happen? And then when it was like, it was just rumored for so many years that when it finally happened, like I was so happy for it to like finally happen. Like I just remember having the biggest fattest grin on my face when they show the Simpsons theme song within the context of the movie. And I think like considering it was that much hyped up for me, I think it did a very good job. Like I do feel like it's still a pretty crowd pleasing kind of movie. And
I was so excited
like
to see it.
I like the fact that they brought back some talent from the Simpsons classic kind of era. They brought back a lot of writers, and they employ
Albert Brooks comes in as the main villain, which is funny.
That's what I was gonna say. Like he's the perfect kind of pick, like as a recurring guest star to be that villain.
Yeah,
so
and Russ Cargill is like the guy from the Heartbroken Kid, the sort of the fat camp leader, but played up a lot more. Like Albert Brooks does like to ham up in a lot of his guest voices, but this is to like another degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's weird because like when I watched the Simpsons movie, I hadn't watched every single episode up until that point. And now that I've done the Simpsons binge of watching every single episode up to that point, it felt oddly like it really enhanced the experience for me. And there was one moment, like, I didn't even realize this the first time I watched it, but when they successfully blow up the dome and they're careening down the glass and it starts, like, ripping to pieces and they lose control and they end up flying over. And I didn't even know this when I first watched it. It was the Springfield Gorge that they pass. And then
in a way, Homer finally accomplished what he could not in the second season.
Yes,
it just took a magic slingshot from Bart.
It's funny because like Bart couldn't have gone over that gorge by himself. Homer couldn't have gone over that gorge by didn't go over that gorge.
In the end, they really needed each other.
It was only when they did it together that they overcame that fucking gorge.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually a super like awesome moment there.
So just
there's a little visual homage to that.
Yeah, the ambulance that's like.
Yeah. When the camera pans out and you see the motorcycle like slowly going over the gorge, like something about seeing that on a really big screen just sort of adds a lot of gravitas to what they were trying to do in Bart the Daredevil.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments in the whole movie, which definitely it benefited from seeing it on a big screen, and I've watched it a few times since on a big-ish screen, but one of my favorite shots in the whole Simpsons movie is the Springfield population marching.
It's the angry mob shot.
The sweeping shot of the whole mob standing on the Simpsons house. Like, it's kind of beautiful in a way.
Yeah.
It's like every character of the Simpsons they've ever animated is just marching, and it's like it's such a all-encompassing shot of what makes the show really good.
Yeah, for sure.
When my girlfriend and I rewatched it this past weekend, I actually tried to like pause it each frame just to see if I could like recognize all the side characters that had been in the show up to that point. So it's an interesting little visual thing.
Yeah.
They don't even know where we live. Its last words. How do I describe the Simpsons movie? Well, I've seen it twice.
Oh, only twice?
Well, only twice, but I mean, I saw it on opening night. That was really cool to see it, in the local theater with like, it was a full house. The credits got a standing ovation. It was this thing. It was like how they described it as a cultural event because so many people you don't even realize you're connected with because you've all grown up on this franchise together. But upon seeing it a second time, I guess I did kind of find, and also a third in hindsight, there are some parts of the movie that don't age super well. Of course, the whole Spider-Pig thing, it was a nice joke when I was 15, but it kind of derails the movie, and it's only really the catalyst for the main thing to happen, essentially. That and Grandpa's vision.
I personally feel like so if the Simpsons have predicted the future a lot of many times before, do you think like if there are any major cities in the United States that have like spiking coronavirus cases, Hey, President Biden, when you take office, don't get any funny ideas to put domes over the cities that, have high COVID numbers.
But how will Starbucks overcharge for the Frappuccinos?
Oh, yeah, let them, run out of all their supplies. Let Starbucks, lose all their stores in those cities,
The midpoint is where things get kind of... I mean, the movie foreshadows how the Simpsons are able to get out of the dome, which was kind of... I felt a little bit, too easy to do that. When they actually go to Alaska, after they've been run out of the town, the animation actually does get a little bit of a nice bump between, the nice scenic horizon view as they're driving in, and then later on when Homer meets the shaman.
Yeah.
That whole epiphany sequence is kind of interesting with the Escher staircases and whatnot and the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Grand Theft Walrus, I don't know, it wouldn't sell as much as GTA 5 would have.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Of all the places the Simpsons traveled, outside Springfield, they never went to Alaska for some reason. But Alaska was where...
Here's $1,000. But why? We pay every resident $1,000 to allow us to ravage the state's natural beauty.
I'm home!
That's a real thing, by the way. The Alaskan government actually does give the state new residents...
Oh, so they weren't just joking.
No,
okay.
that's a real thing. They will pay, new residents to the state $1,000, and part of it does go to the oil company. Part of it is, a contribution from the oil companies, but, that's a real thing. Or at least it was a real thing.
If you talk about the Simpsons movie, you cannot do so without mentioning one of the most prophetic jokes the Simpsons writers didn't see coming.
Are you talking...
Look at me! I'm the mascot of an evil corporation!
Huh?
Less than 15 years later.
Done. Disney
How's
owns
that shoe fitting on the other foot now?
Yeah, and by the way, that wasn't the only Disney parody.
They do a lot of jabs at Disney, which I find
there
really...
was
I'm
the
saying
whole...
on a theatrical scale.
Yeah. Yeah, there was there was the sequence where Homer and Marge get it on with little woodland animals helping them.
That was actually really well done too. It was sort of like a Snow White Bambi homage.
Yeah.
And then there's just a bald eagle there. I just kind of found it it's like I imagine Sam the Eagle from the Muppets just kind of looking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, Simpsons movie was a lot of fun. I remember I saw it twice in the theater. I actually saw it at a matinee because I couldn't on opening weekends, so the theater wasn't quite as packed. And I saw it in Orangeville where my dad was living at the time. So basically, the theater wasn't quite as packed, but the experience was memorable. I really enjoyed it. So, how's that show faring back in season 19?
Can we also mention how Green Day are used and then thrown away in about 2 minutes?
As the latest rock band to die in our town, Lord, hear our prayer.
Oh, God.
I guess if I had to say something, if you guys are saying how many times you've seen it, I had to have seen this movie at least 8 or 10 times now.
Yeah.
I've revisited it quite often. And I remember when I was on a bus trip in school, I think it would have been around 2007 when it came out on DVD. As soon as I showed it to the teacher and she showed it to the class, everyone picked Simpsons movie. Yeah. And everyone just died laughing. I remember my teacher laughed at the one joke where it's like, I'm so angry. It's between Lisa and Marge, and she's like, you're a woman.
Yeah.
You can hold on to anger as long as you can.
No, it's like, you're a woman.
You can hold on to that anger and bottle it up forever or something. I don't know.
Yeah, she died laughing at that.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Maggie, once again, being the Deus Ex Machina. What a wonderful little accident you turned out to be.
Yeah. Now, do you think there should be a sequel? I think they're planning on it.
Well, it doesn't matter what we say because they're already developing one.
They're already developing it? Well...
It's been in the works since 2018.
Yeah. Well...
That's not too long ago.
In the show's intro for the first episode of season 19, which aired the fall after the movie had its theatrical run, it actually depicts a Springfield where...
Like reconstruction.
When Springfield's rebuilding itself, and the chalkboard gag Bart's writing is, I will not wait 20 years to make a sequel. Buddy, you're pushing 15 years, so get going.
Actually, you know what? It'll happen in 2026. It's like Can't
20
say
years.
it's not 20 years if it's only 19.
Oh yeah.
They pulled in
I can
Incredibles
see
too.
that.
What was I gonna say? Well, do you think they should end the show on a second movie?
Yes.
I think is what I wanted to say.
Yes.
Let me phrase this with another homage to your SpongeBob episode. Did they try ending it after Sponge Out of Water? No. Rest my case.
Aw.
So
I don't
you
know.
think it's just
yeah.
You just think it's
I don't
gonna
know the-
spike popularity? Sorry, Michael. You just think it's gonna like re-spike the popularity, and Fox won't let it go, and they'll keep going for
Well,
many
now
more
it's
years.
Disney, so
Oh, yeah,
that
Disney
answers
Fox.
itself.
I was gonna say I don't know the hard facts on this, and I can't source it, but I seem to recall one of the main voice actors like kind of letting slip that they were contracted for 2 sequels to the Simpsons movie.
Oh Christ!
I feel like
Contracted
that's
doesn't
a Harry Shearer thing to do.
contracted doesn't mean it'll happen, but it's just like interesting to think that we might one day see a trilogy.
Well-
They can't last another 20 years waiting
Well,
though.
we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because I want to talk about like how the show could end, but
Alright.
I have a feeling that it might come to one of the key cast members, like Julie Kavner, passing away, or Dan Castellaneta.
I gotta say they've been pretty lucky so far with their main
because
cast.
what are they good? Or if they find a way to keep it going after, let's say there's an episode, because Julie Kavner I think is the oldest of the family cast members, and her voice has aged the worst.
We'll
but
talk
yeah,
about that later. So should we move on to season 19 and
Yeah.
wrap up this retrospective for the next 2
Yeah.
seasons? Please take it away, Michael.
Cool. So my pick for season 19 is Any Given Sundance,
great episode.
which revolves around Lisa sort of making a student film that the school wants to use for kind of more political reasons, and they encourage her to submit it into the Sundance Film Festival, which takes place every year in Park City, Utah.
Yep.
I like this episode because I remember watching it live, and it's sort of lined up with my interests. Obviously, film, indie film, whatever. And it's a very nerdy episode because it makes lots of references to like kind of obscure things, and a big chunk of the plot revolves around indie filmmaker Jim Jarmusch and
Yes.
his
Good.
friendship with Lisa. So like Jim Jarmusch has had a very successful career, but I think for him to kind of be the guest star of the episode is really funny and kind of a bit of a deeper cut than you might expect from a show like The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But it parodies like indie movie cliches and tropes like really, really well, and there's just lots of laughs to enjoy if you are a film goer. And there's I like when celebrities kind of play a sort of desperate version of themselves in The Simpsons, and there's a really funny gag involving John C. Reilly.
Yeah, it kind of
Begging.
comes out of nowhere. Jim Jarmusch's guest appearance is justified, but John C. Reilly's just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, he just appears randomly as himself, begging Principal Skinner to be in his next production, which is kind of funny.
But he shouldn't, because he's going to wreck it.
I was gonna say the Wreck-It Ralph jokes are coming.
Yeah.
But one thing that is kind of funny about this episode, this aired a few months after the Simpsons movie, but the episode kind of ends with this sort of like meta, kind of like wah-wah kind of joke where Marge tells Lisa that her career as a filmmaker is done because she doesn't want any more Simpsons movies.
I just actually realized this could be a sort of more tongue-in-cheek sequel to A Star is Burns.
Yeah,
A
because
little bit, yeah.
Oh,
I was
God.
thinking about that while I was watching it.
yeah,
How many episodes are spiritual successors to other episodes? We've listed at least
in a way,
5
a
so
lot of
far.
them.
We listed
Yeah.
5 so far, so that's
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, I can't remember who said this. I think it's maybe someone attached to the show, but this era of The Simpsons that we're watching and talking about is written by people who would have also grown up on The Simpsons. So it's like, you know,
it's almost like
there is
circle.
a sort of a draw to kind of pulling on familiar storylines a bit.
yeah, it's almost
I
like
mean, well, possibly, but it's also possible that the writers are in their 30s or 40s in the late 2000s which means that they would have themselves been teenagers when the show was on, whereas the people writing the show now were probably young kids when the show first started. So we probably won't get to the people that are more in our age range for another 7, 8 years, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's my thoughts on any given
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Full disclosure, my next. Yeah, Josh, I was waiting for this for a week because my next pick is a highly contestable episode. It really bonks the Simpsons chronology right in the head. But damn it, I can't pass up on saying that I really like that 90s show. I almost said that 70s show. God damn it.
Well, it's still better than that 80s show.
True. Very true. How do I summarize the plot? So in an like a super retcon, the Simpsons are like, hey, what happened to this gap in the 90s when you had us, before you had us? And Homer and Marge recount the time that Marge was in college. She was falling for this yuppie professor, and Homer was all like angry, and he had to move out of her place. And they had a bit of a split, and during his like anger and rage, he formed a grunge band.
Yeah.
Maybe not just a grunge band, basically all the grunge bands. Yeah. Sad. We are Sadgasm, and this song is called Politically Incorrect.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so this episode is not the best written. It's not the best. It has no reason to retcon at all, but the one reason I just love it is that I just love every single song they do, and how it's basically a parody of like Nirvana, which is like my favorite band. So for like people who really love,
of course we have Margarine.
Yeah, that's a Bush parody. Pretty good one too. I actually think I like that song better than the original.
I gotta be honest, I only got into Nirvana recently, so I'm not the biggest grunge guy, but I will say, yes, it does botch the continuity, because if you think about it, because the Simpsons don't age, that means that it would make sense for Homer and Marge to be college kids in the 90s, because if they're going by, if Homer is 38, and if Homer and Marge are 38 in the year 2020, then that would make Homer a child of the 80s and a teenager of the 90s and a college kid of the 2000s.
This is what happens when you don't age your characters.
Yeah, so technically that would make Bart and Lisa born after 2010.
I mean, honestly, I think
Maggie would have been born last year, so...
This is my thing with this show at this point, before I started binging it, I really didn't care about continuity, aside from when a character got killed off, because, I think Josh said this, is, the continuity is whenever the plot feels, whatever it wants.
Yeah, whenever it's convenient to the plot.
Yeah, so... I guess to say it succinctly, that 90s show is a guilty pleasure of mine. I know the fans hate it, but since I'm such a grunge head, I let it slide.
The ending is actually kind of dark because, in some ways, it actually tries to reflect some real parallels of Kurt Cobain's suicide. Yeah. Except it turns out, surprise, Homer's diabetic, and he actually needed the needle.
He needed that needle, yeah.
And it's never touched on again.
I do love that Weird Al Yankovic cameo, though. That
was the second time in this show. We need more Weird Al in everything.
We really do, don't we? As you know, he who has grown tired
of Weird Al is tired of life.
Yeah. Mic drop.
I'll give this episode that it does sort of establish still Homer, Lenny, and Carl are friends, but I'm like, since when was Lou? I guess maybe Homer met Lou in college, but where's Eddie? We need to know the police main character connections.
Yeah. I do think it's funny how, and when they're playing live, each member of that group looks like a member of Nirvana. Like Homer's Kurt, even though, and he's just singing, he's not playing guitar. It's like they swap instruments, because Lenny is...
That would make Lenny Pat Smear, which means Lenny was actually in the germs. Oh my god, why don't they just develop this?
I think Lenny's supposed to be Chris Novoselic, even though he's playing guitar.
So Carl is Pat Smear. Someone has to be Pat Smear.
No, I'm getting to that. Carl is Dave Grohl, because he's got the hair and the outfits, even though he's playing bass. And Lou is Pat Smear because he's got the haircut and the attitude and the
Can we have a
piercings.
backstory episode about Lou where he's playing Lexicon Devil?
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get in the way of your headcanon.
It's okay. Bottom line, I would buy a Sadgasm album if they ever released one.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also like some of the songs they just put in there, like, I think it was Closing Time, or no, Bittersweet Symphony.
Yeah.
Both of them, yeah.
Both.
They have some good songs from the 90s in that episode, too, so.
Yeah.
That's all I really have to say about that 90s show. It's an acquired taste, and I get why there's hate, but I just don't give a damn.
Okay.
Moving on.
My episode for season 19 is Mona Leavesa. The plot of this episode, this completes a trilogy of Glenn Close coming on the show to play Homer's long-lost mother, Mona Simpson. Just a brief recap. Mother Simpson, it aired in the 90s, and it shows that back when she was raising little Homer, she got in trouble with the government, and she had to go on the lam in perpetuity forever. And then the government still wouldn't let it go. In My Mother the Carjacker in season 15, which aired in 10 years later, she was pardoned, but then Mr. Burns gets her on another technicality. So Homer and the kids help her escape from jail, and then she has to hide in perpetuity again. In this episode, she comes back, says, the government's never coming after me anymore, I'm here to stay, but Homer, in a kind of justifiable manner, is like, no, I don't want you hurting me again, so just leave me alone. Mona Simpson dies. Not even a tragic death, it was just her time came.
In her sleep.
In her sleep in front of the fire in a very kind of tasteful but sad, heartbreaking way. So then, basically, the plot of the episode is she asks Homer to scatter her ashes at a certain location at an exact time, and the whole reason for that is so, once again, she could foil another evil plan by Mr. Burns, to kind of bring it full circle. I love this episode because it gives a dear character, a good finale in a season that had tons of duds. They gave this character a well-deserved finale, and they see her off gently and very appropriately. And it's just really touching to see Homer get some closure with his mother.
Yeah,
even if it's
he
not.
Rarely ever got to spend much time with.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really sad, when he gathers, the rest of her ashes. Great, now all I gotta do is add some water and she'll come back, right?
Oh.
No, Homer, I'm sorry.
That was really sad. Because he's so childish about it, but, you can't help but get heartbroken when you have to tell a grown-ass man that your mom's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all I have to say. It's a heartfelt episode, and I approve.
The end montage of Homer and Mona set to mother and child reunion is actually very touching.
Yeah, it reminds me of the father and son tribute from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Because they got the Cat Stevens song to play over Yondu's funeral.
Oh, Cat Stevens.
Yeah. So, home stretch, really this time. Season fucking 20.
Oh, wait, doesn't
Hold on now.
Sorry. My mistake.
I know you want to get through this as much as I do, but we still have me.
I know it's
sorry,
been a while,
Josh.
but
I'm so
going.
sorry. I'm a dick. Go on.
So my pick for season 19 is actually quite a gem, and it's sort of like a past/future episode at the same time. Eternal Moonshine of the Simpson Mind.
Oh, yes.
After rewatching this, I was actually really impressed. Full disclosure, I have not seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, I did for the first time this year.
I heard it was very good.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Essentially, it opens with Homer not being able to remember what happened last night, and his family is nowhere to be found. He essentially has to retrace his steps at Moe's, where it turns out Moe gave him a forget-me shot, which is a drink made of a combination of ingredients so powerful it will literally erase your short-term memory. So from there, he apparently he even asks Grandpa for help, it's pretty rare when Homer has to ask Abe for advice on something, especially on forgetting things. So he goes to the Memory Recovery Institute Professor Frank is running, which I felt is kind of like a Total Recall homage. The idea of going to Recall to sort of relive past memories or memories you want to have.
Well, in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, there is a company that deals with memories, so
Yeah.
it ties in with the title.
So it's a mix of both. So he ends up in a little memory bubble where he can actually, go back to the past. And apparently, the whole reason he did it was because Marge was planning a surprise birthday party for him, and he wanted to forget that so it would actually be a surprise. But it looks like Marge is cheating on him with Duffman, but he has to basically use his memory, his like representations of Bart and Lisa to help him figure out what happened. And in the process, he accidentally ruins his memory of his first kiss, and his mom was like, "Oh yeah, who was my first kiss with?" Bart says, "Apu," and then it replaces with an image of that in his head.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm sure the writers don't want you to remember that now. But afterwards, he decides to jump off the bridge, but he gets pushed. It turns out by Patty and Selma. Then when he realizes that, yeah, he took the shot to forget about the party, and he lands on the boat, and everything's fine.
The timing of that was all down to a T, because had Patty and Selma pushed him at the exact wrong second, he would have been dead.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, not that they care.
I was gonna say, it's very fitting that Patty and Selma are the ones that give him the shove.
Yeah.
Honestly,
It's like deep down they really care about it. No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that there's a nice, really actually kind of funny, but also kind of depressing joke that when they're in the memory bubbles, Bart literally like tries to beat up Homer at like age 10, age 20, like just because he can.
Yeah.
Just because he's a dink. Yeah.
There's even a freaking Ice Age nod in here, and like this is like 2007, so people were already kind of sick of Ice Age.
Yep.
But if you like Eternal Sunshine, if you enjoy a sort of navigating Homer's memories and like the whole like Homer and Marge dichotomy, this is a really great watch.
Yeah.
And it's also like, what if Homo didn't steal a drink from Homer and he instead made one up on his own,
Yeah.
like the alternate universe Flaming Mo.
Do you feel like this would have been a pretty good ending to the series? Because I've heard fans speculate on that.
Not quite. I don't really think the idea of Homer forgetting things just because the plot says so is a great way to end things.
I agree.
Well, on that note, they could have had regarding Margie be an end to the show,
We'll
where she
get
just forgets
to
Homer. But okay, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but this episode also features a parody or recreation of one of the most iconic YouTube videos ever made.
Yes, I'm about to mention that.
Yeah.
That was a trip seeing that again.
Yeah. The video was called like one photo a
Every day.
One photo every day for 30 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was so powerful. But yeah, and so that's cool. Okay, sorry I got ahead of myself, Josh, but great recap.
Now we're in the home stretch.
Okay,
here
season 20.
we go.
Michael, what's the last episode of this season 20?
So, just for some context, season 20, when I was kind of skimming through it on the Disney Plus platform, was definitely the last, or the first season, I guess, where I didn't recognize many of the episodes. I hadn't seen a lot of them. So, I picked an episode called Homer and Lisa Exchange Crosswords.
Yeah.
I purely picked that because I myself am a crossword junkie. I do them every single day.
Oh, sick.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I just was like, hey, if there's an episode that revolves around this, that's cool. It's basically this episode where Lisa herself becomes obsessed with crosswords, and I liked it because it was like a Homer Lisa episode, which I sort of have a soft spot for. He's pushing her to kind of enter a crossword tournament. But I liked this episode because Homer and Lisa are so different. There's like such a difference between them in the family and just the kind of people that they are. But they obviously have a lot of love and mutual respect for each other. So it's a story. It's been done time and time again, but it's like a story about, Homer kind of investing in Lisa, and then Lisa really liking that her father's approving of what she's doing, and then they have some kind of rift, and then they reconcile. So that's been done like a lot in the show, but I feel like it's always still kind of nice to see. I like that these characters just accept and understand each other. And speaking of like deep cut random cameos, there's there's like a reference in this show to Will Shortz, who's like the New York Times crossword puzzle like editor. And it was just such a funny kind of like Simpsons kind of Lisa moment that she's like geeking out about him being like the huge celebrity.
Because he actually was in this episode.
Yeah, he voices himself. Yeah.
I first heard of him actually because he was, I think, either involved with or wrote stuff for a great NPR podcast called Ask Me Another.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun. It's like word games and trivia and stuff like that. I'm just going to verify that before I assume anything. But this I also kind of it reminds me of a very similar episode from season 14, I'm Spelling as Fast as I Can, where Lisa's in the Olympics, except it's crosswords instead of spelling bees.
I actually I actually remember Lisa the Greek because that's where Homer exploits Lisa for the purposes of gambling.
Yeah, and it's a mix of that too with the betting.
Yeah, so it feels like a remake or a fusion of a couple episodes.
Yeah, those are
and I mean, at this point, we're literally talking about the 20th season of a show, which is not a thing you can say about a lot of shows. But like even if it was a little bit familiar, I kind of didn't mind that because it just felt like an episode of the elements of The Simpsons I enjoyed.
I never really like episodes where like Homer does something so shitty that his family is actually super mad at him. So that was like the one detracting thing from this episode.
Yeah.
That he does something like that. And Lisa literally like drops the Simpson name and becomes a Bouvier for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So. Oh well. Is there anything else you want to say about exchanging crosswords?
Not really. Like I said, it was only something I've seen literally one time for this podcast, so it's not like something I've gone back to a lot that I have a ton to say, but I liked it for what it was.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
If you're interested in learning more about crosswords and stuff like that, the episode was based around the 2006 documentary Wordplay, so if you can track that down, I'd recommend watching it.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Nice, good tip.
Nice.
Oh, I see. Alright, so I had to change mine because I decided to donate my pick to Evan since he wanted to pick it, so I was like, alright. So I picked another episode. I picked Lisa the Drama Queen.
Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, me too, actually. It's it's actually nice. Much like God damn it, what was the name of that episode? I literally just talked about it. The Last of the Red Hot Mamas. It's kind of nice. Red Hat Mamas. It's kind of nice to see Lisa have a friend for once, and it's like
but not last.
Nah. She becomes best friends with this girl who's almost like an exact clone of her, where it's like they like the same music, they love to write, they're passionate about a lot of intellectual things, and together they create and almost inhabit this fantasy world that they're writing. And I think it's supposed to be like a reference to a Peter Jackson movie. I think it's called Heavenly Creatures. Yeah, that's what the
Yes, that's actually interesting that they based it around that.
Which was actually a real case where like some shit really went down south. I haven't seen Heavenly Creatures, so I can neither confirm nor deny. But what I like about this episode is like we really get into the psychology of Lisa's friend, who's just like uptight and like really doesn't like her lot in life.
Yeah.
I don't really understand, but alright. I guess everyone's different. But she almost uses her fantasy world as like her main view on life. It's all she can think about, and she uses it as escapism but almost in the wrong way, where it's like it's all she ever thinks about. It's almost like Ready Player One, where people use like the game as a means of escaping reality.
You just lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one. It's a good one. In terms of the creativity, yeah, that really ramps it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I do appreciate it. Lisa, even by the end, kind of acknowledges that, yeah, I don't want to live my life like this. You do you, but personally, I think you're a little bananas.
Yeah. Emily Blunt was her friend, right?
Yeah, she did
Yes.
the voice of the... I don't know her name. I think it was Julia? Could be wrong. But anyways, yeah, Emily Blunt does a really good job. But come on, guys. Can Lisa have at least one friend? Bart has Milhouse, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Well, she did have Janie.
For a bit,
she,
yeah.
She kind of comes and goes, though. I don't
Yeah.
know. What have, Alright, Evan, it's your turn.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Fallout Boy.
Oh, yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I kind of just glossed over that. My pick for season 20 is actually an episode that's fun in terms of how adventurous its premise can be. Basically, there is the A plot and B plots of this episode intersect perfectly, but they all evolve really well. Basically, a presidential aptitude test is thrown at Springfield Elementary, and the way Superintendent Chalmers and Skinner hype this test up is every one of you has to ace it or our school loses funding, like, forever. It's really
So
So
always
it's no
losing
EQAO
funding.
then.
For our listeners outside of Canada, or Ontario, Canada, EQAO was a standardized testing system done for grades 3, 6, and 9, and it's very similar to this.
I hated that crap.
Yeah. So basically, they do the stupid multiple choice standardized test, and Lisa is so consumed by fear that she'll fail that she basically spends She freezes, spends way too much time on each multiple choice answer rather than just burn through them all.
I don't think she even answers a single question.
Yeah, no, she...
Because she's so stressed out, she can't even, like,
Yeah.
fill it out properly.
By the time she is, like, almost... By the time that the clock is about to run out on the test, she only answered, like, 2 questions. So that's plot A. Plot B is
where things get really interesting.
So Skinner and Chalmers have to get rid of the students that are going to drive the school test scores, collective test score down. And that's Bart, Jimbo, Nelson, Dolph, Kearney, and Ralph. They throw them on a bus and send them off to Capital City for a day to basically do whatever. And then, but the bus breaks down, and then they have to go on an adventure, and it ends up where Ralph gets trapped on a garbage barge, and Skinner has to pull some Casino Royale free-running shit to save him, and it's actually a lot of fun. And, yeah, it's just, and then Skinner basically, he takes the bully, the inepts back to the school and says, yeah, this test is bullshit because I just learned like 10 years worth of life experience in one day by saving Ralph, and you're not going to learn this, so this test is bullshit. Toss it. And so...
And then they cut Footloose.
I'm also lifting the school's ban on dancing.
Yeah.
Gotta lose.
Footloose.
And it's just a big dance number to end it.
Chalmers has some fun.
This is like Chalmers surprisingly becomes very likable in the later the whole rest of the show may go downhill, but Chalmers actually kind of becomes a character.
Yeah, he does.
He's not just the guy.
He's not just the Skinner.
Yeah.
Well, they play with that a lot, and they always do a different angle on it in almost any episode.
You misheard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's crazy. But yeah, so that's the episode. It's a lot of fun. It's action packed. It's creative. It's cool.
I really like all the dynamics they play with like the bullies and Bart and Ralph and like Skinner. My favorite part is where Ralph has to go to the bathroom and he starts singing Spice Girls. And Skinner's like, Ralph, are you done yet? It's like, oh, I went just before we got here. I went already.
Jesus.
It's like, God damn it, Ralph.
Yeah. Holy God.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent episode. That's a really good pick.
Okay, let's bring this on home.
Let's bring it to Mike.
And then
to
let's
Josh.
let's bring this on home, and then let's spend the finale of this episode complaining about it.
Yeah.
This episode I had not revisited until doing the research for this episode, but wow, this worked out really well. Gone, Maggie, gone.
Yes.
It's essentially Maggie apparently is taken in by nuns because Homer leaves her there by mistake, and it turns into Lisa trying to solve some ancient mystery to get Maggie back. And so if you ever read the Da Vinci Code or watched National Treasure in the mid-late 2000s, this is the episode for you because it sends those up so well. Near the end, where it turns out Maggie's actually the sun child of some sort, where she will bring peace and harmony to Springfield, the light shines in through the stained glass window on her bow, and the colors that reflect out, it is some of the most joyous 2D animation the show's done.
I would agree with that.
It is so interesting to see Lisa try and tackle all these like overly cryptic mysteries, and just like it's making fun of all the conspiracy coded messages and everything, because it's like it looks like Lisa actually got it, but then it's like someone else, I think it was Comic Book Guy or Skinner, who are also involved.
I think both.
Comic Book Guy and Skinner. An odd combination.
Yeah, but one that pays
yeah,
off
Mother
nicely.
Superior, she solved it. It's like, no. The solution was regally, the rock gem is Lisa. Oh, please, how many sentences start with the word regally? This one? Oh, give me that. It's really Maggie, Sherlock. You know, I have to point out that this only makes sense if I get the wrong answer first.
Yeah.
And the B plot is Homer has to, as it's sort of like an 8.5 plot, because Marge blinded herself by not using an eclipse viewer to look at an eclipse, so she was blind for a few days. So because Maggie's missing, Homer has to dress his hand up as Maggie in order to like keep her occupied, and Bart has to like style his hair as Lisa and play the saxophone to distract Marge. But
It goes pretty crazy.
and there's even a Ratatouille homage.
Yeah.
At one point, I'm like, yeah, this definitely came out in the late 2000s.
Yeah.
Even still, it is a really strongly written episode. I love how like every like plot thread ties together so nicely.
Yeah.
Like they put some
And
actual construction into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, the Gem Child leaves with her family, and then Bart decides to take up the throne, and the apocalypse starts. So I'm like,
Yeah, no. It would happen. The second Bart goes to the altar, everything goes to hell.
Good going, Marge.
Yeah.
once again, Maggie could be the savior for humanity, and the writers take that premise away just as quickly as they offer it up.
Yep. That's a really good episode to end this retrospective on, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's quite a gem.
So,
Literally.
okay. So now that the Simpsons, we're like 2/3 of the way through this legendary, amazing show, and I'm really starting to feel the fatigue.
Yeah, I know. Just talking about all these episodes, I feel really tired
Like,
right now.
I mean, like, I felt tired at the end of the last retrospective where we talked about the Golden Age, but there was a feeling of
Yeah,
satisfaction.
because we burnt so much energy talking about all the moments we loved.
No, but it was a feeling of satisfaction.
We lost our voices from
Here
like quoting
we
it
can
so
barely
much.
get some.
Yeah, no,
action.
this is like, okay, so I want to point out, you know, a couple, the teen seasons are the seasons where I'm really starting to hate some episodes. Like, I don't have a visceral hatred for any of the episodes from season 1 to 10. I think there are some weaker episodes in that era, but none of them that I hate and just don't ever want to watch again. I actually was able to come up with a list of episodes that I have no interest in seeing ever again in my life. And my least favorite episode of the whole series that I have seen
The whole series so far.
Ah, yes. My least favorite episode of the series so far is, drumroll please, No Loan Again, Naturally. The plot, I'll sum this episode up in 3 or 4 points. Point 1, Homer's financial incompetence leads to the Simpson home getting foreclosed. Point 2, Flanders buys the home at an auction to prevent the Simpsons from literally going homeless. Part 3, point 3, Homer treats Flanders like absolute shit despite the fact that he's legally a tenant, and then it gets to the point where Flanders just kicks him out again. And then there is a obligatory happy ending, but it's not earned in the slightest. And by the way, there is no voice of reason in the family. Marge doesn't call Homer out on his shit. Not even Lisa calls Homer out on his shit. It's so bad. I don't like mean-spirited episodes of this show either. Another good example of mean-spirited episodes is Boys of Bummer, where...
Here we go.
You can get into that one, Josh.
Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, who wants to take this?
Josh, you can take it. We'll hand it off to you.
All right. This episode is basically Bart makes one error in a baseball game, and the whole town doesn't stop giving him crap for it until he snaps, spray paints "I hate Bart Simpson" over everything, and literally attempts suicide.
Yeah.
And that still doesn't stop it.
Yeah.
Like, it takes that. I mean, and it has a lackluster B plot where Marge and Homer and the Lovejoy swap mattresses, and it turns out that's what fixes Helen and Grevlin Lovejoy's sex life.
Oh my god,
But
I hated that.
That's like that doesn't. Not only is that unnecessary, it detracts from, like, there is some incredibly dark stuff they go into in this A plot, and no one seems to do anything about it until Marge literally chews the entire town out for treating Bart that way, and then they literally just replay the championship game over and over until he finally catches the ball.
Which is bullshit, because rather than teach, people how to cope with their loss and live with mistakes and get better from them, no, we're just gonna redo the game over again because privilege.
Yeah.
But the dark thing is that there are, like, other sports figures that have blown championship games that also get, like, death threats. In some way, if they wanted to approach it as sports really can bring out the worst in people, there was an avenue where that could have succeeded.
Oh, yeah.
But instead, they choose to make, one of the more recognizable, like one of the main characters who's a kid, mind you, like basically a pariah for no reason other than because they didn't win an optional, non-essential thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's a really lousy episode. If I had to pick another episode where, like, sports kind of play into it, actually, I gotta be honest, this episode goes everywhere, but none of it's funny. It's, the Bart of War.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, the Bart of War starts off...
That's a nonsense one.
You could make a meme of this episode, how it started versus how it's going.
Yeah, like, you try to make a plot graph of this episode, you're gonna spin your head off. So, it's like Bart and Milhouse are just fucking around, and then they end up in Flanders' house, and he finds out that Flanders has an exquisite Beatles, like, memorabilia collection.
It's because they were watching South Park.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't sure that happened before or after that, because, like, basically Marge puts a V-chip inside their TV so they can't watch South Park anymore.
Remember when V-chips were a thing?
Yeah, right?
That definitely dates this episode.
Basically. Yeah. And then, like, I don't know, then Bart and Milhouse go to, like, separate, like, Boy Scout camps. Like, Homer runs, like, this really, really racy Native American Boy Scouts one. And, like... And then, like, Milhouse is, like, in this, I don't know, like...
Cavalry kids.
Cavalry, kind of like British Empire kind of thing.
No, it's the American Cavalry.
Cavalry.
Essentially, it's to use the term, but I do not mean this when I say this, it's cowboys and Indians.
Cowboys and Indians.
It was an old game
Which
that...
itself is an outdated term now anyways, but...
Yeah.
You can't really play that anymore, no. And then it culminates with, basically, they can't get along, so they go out of their way to make each other suffer, like each faction of the Boy Scouts, I guess. And then it culminates in a stadium, I don't know, baseball, I think? I don't remember.
Basically, they start, like, everybody gets into it. There's a big riot in the stadium.
Big riot in the stadium, and it all ends up with a rendition of "Oh Canada."
Because "Oh Canada" solves every problem.
For absolutely no justifiable reason.
No build-up, no payoff.
Well, we've learned that war is not the answer, except to all of America's problems. Can you tell this came out in the Bush era?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
God, like, that's such a meandering episode, and I just felt... I literally said, what the fuck was that? By the end of the episode, and Evan, you were there.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck was that? Yeah.
I've got an episode that is a contender for worst of the series.
Yeah.
Homer versus Dignity.
Ooh, the monkey business one.
Oh boy.
I have to get to it, but essentially,
Yeah. Sorry.
Homer is blackmailed by Mr. Burns into doing all kinds of deplorable things. And one of the major ones is, of course, as the internet has said, he dresses up in a panda suit, and a panda at the Springfield Zoo,
Whoops.
to put it politely, has its way with him. Yeah, so essentially, because they're struggling financially, Homer is his prank monkey. Remember one of the later episodes, I think it was Mona Lisa, where, Homer's trying to stop Mr. Burns from launching the... there was another episode. Oh, no, Simple Simpson, where Mr. Burns tries to get Homer to pie someone.
The Dalai Lama.
I get it all
The
confused.
Dalai Lama. It's kind of like that, where Homer's, at Mr. Burns' mercy.
Which is never a fun time, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like, when Homer dresses as a panda, he gets zapped with tasers, and then an actual panda essentially sexually assaults him. This is not the last time Homer, there's implications Homer gets assaulted. The strong arms of the maw, I'm looking at you.
Oh my god. I don't like that episode either.
That traumatic experience is what gets Homer to realize that he's tired of giving up his dignity for money. And so, essentially, Homer is able to keep his dignity intact.
Yeah.
But, then Mr. Burns just decides to continue the Merry Fishmas prank and just throws fish guts on people. Not only is it just Mr. Burns being a disgusting, terrible human being, but it's possibly it is likely one of Homer's lowest moments as a human being and as a character in this show, period.
By the way, Josh, Hey Josh, when I talked to you about when you said the word pandas, you reminded me of a question that I actually forgot to ask you when we were at season 16. Remember how you said the episode 30 Minutes Over Tokyo was banned from Japan because of the way lepers are depicted? Well, I have a question. Do you know if the episode Goo Goo Gai Pan was banned in China? Because they really poke fun at the Communist Party.
I'm going to check that, but I wouldn't say Goo Goo Gai Pan is a bad episode.
It's not a bad episode.
A character that's not really used much. That doesn't really show up much else in the show.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna check. It doesn't appear that it's banned anywhere.
Oh, okay. So that's really...
Oh no, it was banned in the People's Republic of China.
Oh I knew it.
Basically.
Because
I mean, that's not hard to decipher.
I mean, I believe that because we're talking about a government that banned Winnie the Pooh because they compared Winnie the Pooh to the president.
It's kind of interesting, though, that so many entertainment companies, including the Simpsons now owners, cater to that area of the world because of marketing dollars.
They are an entertainment mogul, and a lot of entertainment that comes out of North America has to appeal to their audience in accordance to what their government wants them to see. And if it doesn't, then your movie's not getting screened in China, and you lose a shit ton of money at the global box office.
Yeah. Hey Michael, you've been a little quiet lately. Do you have any episodes you hate in this section of The Simpsons?
Well, it's kind of weird. I only revisited a lot of these episodes because we were doing the podcast, and there's not too many that stand out to me as being particularly bad or episodes I hated. Just because I don't know. I guess I never really even like thought about them. I might have watched them like once back in the day when they aired or something. But I was never. I guess kind of sum up my thoughts on this era. I was never that cynical about the teen years of The Simpsons because there's a lot of stuff I enjoy.
Yeah,
and
not all bad.
There was like, it was when I was watching The Simpsons live. So these were like the new episodes I was seeing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely, you were never going to be able to recapture those first like 8 to 11 years, but there is a lot in this era I actually kind of enjoy to sort of end things on a positive-ish kind of note.
Yeah.
I have one more.
What's that?
Yeah.
Regarding Margie.
Yeah.
We touched on it earlier.
That's a bad one.
I was gonna pick that one too, but yeah.
Essentially, cleaning fumes cause amnesia, and then the
Well-
episode becomes like 50 First Dates.
Well, she bonked her head when
Yo,
she smelled the...
she passed
cleaning.
out from cleaning fumes and then bonks herself on the head when she falls.
That's why she got amnesia.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically I hate amnesia plots, and this one's like the worst because of all she can remember absolutely everyone except Homer, and yeah, I just don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
And Homer tries his ass off to try. Well, to be honest, Homer does act like a bit of a pig throughout most of the episode too.
Yeah.
So, and that just is kind of like a character assassination, but like. It's just so frustrating. And then even though she's not even, and then she has to kick Homer out of his own house, and then like Patty and Selma rope her into like speed dating, even though she's still married.
Yeah, no, they're just looking
They're taking advantage of her mental, her mental situation, and that's fucked.
Yeah.
And then like
Yeah.
she gets rejected because she has 3 kids.
Um,
And the only way she does end up remembering Homer is that he drinks too much. Ha ha.
yeah.
Oh, I hate that episode. And this brings up to a bigger problem I have with the show. There's too many episodes that put Marge and Homer's marriage to the test.
Season 14 starts that trend.
Yeah, it's just there's so many of them, and it's annoying.
And the one time where Homer actually leaves Marge is in 3 Gays of the Condo.
yeah, it's the one time it's reversed.
Yeah. But yeah, on that note, I kind of want to end this
the
with...
Marge gets weirded out to sort of save it.
Yeah, that was, kudos to her for that. So I
Can
want
I add one more, or are we already over time?
Well,
Okay, well, let's one more. Okay,
Yeah.
one more, and then we gotta like say something nice.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be mean.
One particularly bad episode, but that sums up post 9/11 America, but also post 9/11 Simpsons in the worst ways possible. Bart Mangled Banner.
oh yeah. I actually like that one because of how bonkers it is with its premise.
There's one joke that kills me, but yeah, it is an overall not that awesome episode.
Yeah.
There's one joke.
And My Paws and Boomsticks as well, if we're touching on like
Islamophobia.
Yeah,
9/11, like overly American, overly patriotic, extremely xenophobic stuff.
That
Yeah.
was a bit of an awkward episode, but yeah, it has some points.
Yeah. There is an episode that predicted how Trump would enter the political campaign. That is E. Fluberius Wiggum, I believe that.
E pluribus Wiggum.
E. Pluribus Wiggum. And also the episode that predicted Trump's wall, or the concept of it, is Coming to America, where they build a giant fence by Springfield to keep out the Ogdenvillians. After the
Shelbyville's off the hook this time. How nice.
Yeah, no, the Simpsons needed another town to have a rivalry with this time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
There's also there's just a ton of liar revealed subplots.
yeah,
too.
you don't really care for Lyle revealed.
Lyle revealed.
Lyle
Whoa.
Revealed.
Well,
Hey, that's a good show name.
Yeah,
have I no shame?
yeah.
But no, liar revealed is honestly my least favorite writing cliche. If I ever see a movie do it, it's why I don't like Bug's Life or a lot of other things of that nature. Shark Tale especially does this.
Shark Tale, I think, is the worst example.
Yeah, but like, there's so many Simpsons episodes where like a character like goofs up or something, or they have to like make this pretense, and you know the other character is gonna find out eventually. They're gonna have a horrible spat, and then it's gonna bring the second act low point, and they have to get together. It's like, oh well, we learned our lesson. I'm like, what? Well,
Yeah.
if you were smart, you wouldn't have done this in the first place.
Yeah.
Although that's Simpsons in a nutshell, but I just liar reveal. I hate it so much.
So yeah, last thing I can kind of say is that
Let's wrap this up, please.
there were some creative premises, and even onward into seasons 20 to 30, which we will get to later.
21.
Oh yeah, and seasons 21 through to season 30, or however many seasons there are now.
30x next.
Oh god.
And there's still a couple seasons after that, but they're on Disney Plus.
Oh
yet.
lord. Well, I feel like
Lord.
Hence the 30xx.
Well, I want to save the kind of when will the Simpsons end for 10 weeks from now. But what I'd like to point out is they kept us intrigued with creative premises and still predicting and satirizing aspects of life in America and life in the world overall. So you got to give the Simpsons, kudos for being around for so long and being for such a staple of pop culture that they've warranted us dedicating another 4-hour episode to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, we tried.
We tried.
Yeah, we tried.
Failed.
Sorry.
The lesson is never try.
Fair enough. And on that note, Good night, America.
Hey, before we end here, I would like to sing a song that I feel perfectly encapsulates this era of The Simpsons.
Sure.
And also foreshadows the modern inevitability of its existence.
Okay.
Take it away, Josh.
Home and Shorts, Christmas Show, Marge is Fling, Homer's Grove, Barton Well, Flanders Fails, Whacking Snakes, Monorail, Mr. Plow, Homer Space, Sideshow Bob, Steps on Rig, Lisa's Future, Stelma's Hubby, Marsh Not Proud, Homer Chubby, Homer Worries, Bart is Gay, Poochie, U2, NRA, Hippies, Vegas, and Japan, Octuplets, and Boys Boy Band, Marge Murmurs, Maud Croaks, Lisa Buddhist, Homer Tugs, Maggie Blows, Burns Away. What else do I have to say?
You didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the wood.
Stories for years, like Much becomes a robot. Maybe Mo gets a cell phone. Has Bart ever owned a bear? Or how about a crazy wedding where something happens and do. Sorry for the clip show. Have no fears. We've got stories for years. Ironically, I think one of those jokey things they did in that song actually became a subplot for an episode.
Yeah. So predict Simpsons.
I'm very impressed, Josh.
Simpsons
I
predict.
read
No,
the book, but
thank you.
That was the one thing about Gumprose that like it ended up calling the future of the show where it just keeps going forever.
It really
Yeah.
does. You can't stop the Simpsons.
Yeah. Okay, you can't stop them, but we gotta stop now. So
Yeah.
let's end this thing.
That's it. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for joining
Good
us,
night.
Josh and Michael.
Yes.
Hope to see you on the next one.
Cool.
Have fun crashing all 10 more seasons of this.
Oh Lord.
Woo.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Woohoo.